Hey, welcome to Max Man Cave Chats. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the support. And you're going to love this with Tim Kay, founder of the Veterans Project. Everybody out there, this is Mac hanging in the man cave, and I'm super excited and just I've been trying to do this for a while. He's even been in the man cave and hung out with me, but the timing didn't work out. But to have my brother Tim Kay hanging with me in the man cave virtually, even though he hangs here when he comes into town, but it's really awesome to have you here, Tim. My buddy Tim Kay, co-founder of the Veterans Project. We got a lot to talk about, guys. He's the real deal. I met him a year ago,
Yeah.
and we hit it off. We didn't just become friends; we became brothers. I mean, we lived together like a deployment, and but but yeah, man. So what I'd like to do first, man, is just kind of have you introduce yourself to the people that especially some of the old meatheads like me that don't really know who you are,
Yeah, yeah.
and then we'll get into it from there, brother.
Of course. Well, my name's Tim Kay. I started the Veterans Project about 6 years ago, and I started the Caregiver Project about 3 years ago. The Veterans Project is a comprehensive black and white photographic essay where I follow veterans around all allied wars. It could be Korea, Vietnam, World War II, Iraq, Afghanistan. I've gone to England. I've covered Australians. So it's really not about just American veterans. As you can see by Mac's shirt, he has the British shirt on there, the British Veterans Project shirt on there. We want to cover veterans from all wars who have made all allied sacrifices because, Mac, I think it's really incredible that some of these countries have stepped up in the face of terrorism when we were the ones attacked. So I have a lot of love for my British brothers, for my Australian brothers who came in because they didn't really have to. And so for them to do that for us is pretty cool. We did have their back in World War II, of course, but they came back around for it in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I'm very thankful for that. So this is a comprehensive photographic essay. We cover veterans from all wars. Like I said, the emphasis when I started it as my capstone project in my master's degree at UT Dallas it was Iraq and Afghanistan because that's what I knew. I'd fought in Iraq. I served in the Army, Texas National Guard specifically. Had deployed right in the middle of my college baseball career to Iraq. I came back, finished baseball, started my master's, picked up a camera, and then lo and behold, I have this Berkeley hippie professor who is like a leader of protests in Vietnam. Just, crazy irony here, right? She comes to me and like pulls me in her office and says, Tim, I really think you should tell veteran stories. I feel really bad about how I treated those guys. And I think that that's important. And I said, lady, you're crazy. There are a million people probably telling our stories. And she said, I don't think so. This was back in 2012, I would say 2012, 2013. There wasn't really anything out there at the same time. It was, for those of you that don't know time frames, it was about the same time that Black Rifle Coffee was starting and like some of the bigger veteran brands were starting. We were starting to get into that veteran space where guys were becoming a little bit more well known. And so there was actually nothing really out there telling Iraq and Afghanistan stories. So I can't officially say that I'm the first, but we had several historians look into it at the time, and there was really nothing going on with Iraq and Afghanistan. So one of the first for sure. Anyways, telling these stories, I was so impacted by those first four that I did as my capstone project. Joe Washam, who was an Army veteran who was burned over 60% of his body, chemical burns. It was at one of Saddam Hussein's nuclear compounds where he supposedly had nuclear weapons. There was a survey group going out there back in 2003 looking for those weapons. And an insurgency group had rigged that building to blow, and they didn't know it. And so as they were leaving, Joe was basically grilled on the inside of his Humvee. And so he ended up coming back to the States, doing 28 months in the BAMC burn unit, which is Brooks Army Medical Center in San Antonio. And, scraping his flesh off 3 times with steel wool, just terrible, terrible return home. And I was so impacted by these stories because you have a story like that with Joe where he's burned in such a horrible way. And then he had just met his girlfriend 6 months before he was burned. She came and visited him in the hospital, and he said, "Nurses, I need you to turn her away. I need you to tell her she can't come into the room. I'm breaking up with her. I don't want her to see me or anything." He was so, he couldn't stand the thought of her seeing him like that, enough to the point where he was willing to break up with her. And she fought past the nurses and, threatened a few, I'm sure, with the throat punch, and and ended up breaking past these nurses to see him. And she said, "Joe Washam, I don't care what you look like. I'm always going to love you." Anyways, they got married like a year later, and they've been married for 16 years now and have a kid. But it's really about the reintegration. That's why I tell that story, because for me, it's about transition. This project is about that. What are you doing now? What are you doing moving forward? Everybody can tell the combat stories, and Mac, you've got plenty of combat stories. But what are you doing now? Because when your career came to a hard stop, all of a sudden it's like, hey man, nobody cares. Like what you did was incredible and certainly a sacrifice worthy of much acclaim, but nobody cares and nobody has to care. And that's not the point of the project. The point of the project is to get people to understand what transition and reintegration is like.
And with that said, man, I mean, that for me, next month will be 4 years I've been officially retired, and that's what I talk
Wow.
to guys.
Congrats.
Yeah, and I talk to guys every day about this. The transition, it's the hardest piece of everything that we do, because whether it's 4 years you did or 25 years, you're living this life. You're living like my buddy Derek Carver always told me. He's like, you were living at 100 every day for X amount of years, and then you stop and go to zero, and then you're this guy or gal that in some way, shape, or form, even if you're not a senior NCO or whatever, people look up to and respect, and they listen to you. And then all of a sudden you're out and you don't have that. You're in this world to where, like you said, all that stuff that we did was cool, and we understand the sacrifices that we went through and all, but everyday civilians or civilian employers, that doesn't matter, because what matters is your skills now and what you're doing today and what you're qualified to do and what you're doing tomorrow. And and that's why I love your project, man, because you tell their story, but you're telling it in a way that, everything that this guy has done has led him to here, and tomorrow is going to be a different day, and he's going to keep moving and keep working. And for us in the veteran community, a lot of us, man, and I know you've seen it and talked to guys, a lot of us, when we get out, we just get so aggravated, so disappointed that we just basically kind of quit.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? What is the statistic about jobs when guys get out, within like X amount of years, they've been through so many jobs.
It's not good.
Yeah. Because it's hard for you to deal with, because hell, look at me, man. I was a E9 in the Army, and then I get out, in the Army, I was top of the food chain.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
But now I'm not,
Yeah, care and don't care at the supermarket.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, hell, for a dude like me, even getting a job, when I retire, age is a discriminator. You know? So yeah, man.
I haven't thought about that, Mac, really. I mean, I think that's what makes it so hard on you guys who retire, because out of all the difficulties that I've seen, really, it's the older dogs, the majors, the lieutenant colonels, even harder on your side, because usually often officers have a pipeline straight into the employee, into the civilian world, right? They usually have some big connection out there. But on the enlisted side, even as a sergeant major, still hard to get a job, I'm sure, getting out. So for you to have 20 plus years career of volatility and constant aggressiveness and having to pay attention to every single detail, right? Super focused. You're extremely qualified for a lot of civilian jobs. In fact, you'd be a leader in most of those jobs, even though I don't know if the old civilians could stand the talk sometimes. But your ability to get things done is really what makes you an incredible asset to a company. And yet with the market the way it is, it's just not the same as World War II, where you came back and everybody had a job waiting for them. I had the World War II guys tell me all the time is like, you Iraq and Afghanistan guys, you can't demand respect. Stop trying to demand it.
No.
And I agree with that 100%. But I will say that they had a much more open job market than we had when coming back now. We don't have as open of a job market. They had whole jobs that had to be filled when they came back into the community. So I think it's a lot easier. It's harder in some ways back then, but it's easier in some ways back then because everybody had kind of done the same thing, right? Back then.
Yeah.
It's like Joe down the line was at Okinawa, and then Mike down the line was in the Battle of the Bulge. And so nobody's bragging about their experiences. Nobody cares. You just have to get back to work. Yeah. And so it's a whole community of that, a whole community devoted to the American dream. And we just don't have that now. It's 2% of us that go and fight. And then we come back and we're treated like a lot of minority groups, right? Kind of discriminated against, right?
Yeah.
And that's a real thing. So I think what you're pointing out is very interesting because you did these 20 plus years at such a incredible capacity. I mean, leading men into places nobody would ever want to go. And you're leading these men aggressively. I mean, as a first sergeant, kicking down doors. I mean, no offense to my first sergeant, but he wasn't kicking down doors, bro. So, for you to kick down doors and get after it into the mix, man, it's such an incredible show of your career and what you were all about. And Mac, I think that speaks volumes. And one of the reasons why when we were on that movie set, I wanted to talk to you so badly because, first of all, Nate Boyer's like, this dude's the real deal, bro, like real deal. And when a special forces buddy of mine says somebody is the real deal, somebody's a real deal. So he said that you were the real deal. And I talked to you and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's combat experiences are wild, but he is such a kind-hearted, loving man. Past all the bravado, the Viking biker, outside and, the looking like a skull crusher when I walk into the building and I'm like, I don't want to fight this guy in an alley, but your kindness and your heart really showed. And I could still see a part of you, Mac, that was over there in the Arghandab. I talk about that in our podcast with Texas Public Radio and NPR that we have coming up. You're going to be the second episode out of the chute with them, but they love you. And one of the things they love is like they see that volatility and that struggle in getting out and parts of you that were still over there with your guys, because who couldn't be when you've made such a significant sacrifice? So, I mean, how have you? Is there? I don't want to say guilt, but is there insecurities with that and coming back and leaving a place like that and then, never fully getting over that experience? Because that is so volatile, man, being over there. And your explanation of the Arghandab was basically like hell on earth, almost sounded Vietnam-like in the references,
Yeah. Well, it was, man. And what, it's not just me, it's all those guys that were over there in BCO, and hell, just in 2508 in general. I'll talk to the guys, it's like for me, man, like we talked about before, it was my fourth combat deployment. I deployed as a staff sergeant and a platoon sergeant, as a door kicker, then a platoon sergeant, then first sergeant, sergeant major. But my second deployment as a first sergeant, we got deployed to Helmand during the big offensive. So I worked with the Brits down there, which I love the Brits.
Yeah.
And we were down there for about 3 months, and then we got that battle space in Kandahar, in the Arghandab Valley. And the thing about it is the colonel at the time told me and my CO, now Lieutenant Colonel Armstrong, that he's like, hey guys, we got battle space, we got the Arghandab River Valley, and you guys are the main effort. And we were always, well, now it's decisive effort, but we were the main effort for the battalion, because I mean, hell, I had the number one CO in the battalion, probably the brigade. But what haunts me about it is the fact that, we went into a situation that I feel like, we were trained for direct action. Like we were very disciplined. We were very, very hard hitting company. We were kicking ass down in Helmand because it was all direct action, and then we go in this valley, and then all of a sudden, we, for lack of a better term, in our minds started getting our asses kicked, man. Because we're taking casualties left and right and not inflicting any casualties on the bad guy. And to be the first sergeant of that element, and to be the guy that constantly has to be the asshole and put boot to ass to those guys. Like, there are days, man, when I'll just sit here and something will spark a memory, and I'll remember when I just crushed a kid for something, and I think about it, and I'm like, I probably could have done that better, but at the same time, if I didn't do that, then he might not be here. But I live with that. I could talk about it for hours, man, now. But I'll tell you, after the Argonaut for, however X amount of years, until I finally went and saw a counselor and all, I never really even talked about it, And it's not, but it's weird, man, because I was in the invasion. I've seen hella combat.
Yeah.
But you don't realize until you get to that level. I had 9 guys when I went to combat the first time, 42 the second time. The third time I had 140 something with all attachments, and the odds are stacked up against you there. You're going to take casualties, and every one of them, if you're a leader, is personal, but not only as a leader, as a paratrooper, it also haunts me that all those guys feel responsible for everybody that was lost. And the hard part about that whole thing, and that's why I love talking to guys like you, as you understand, is, our guys, they won the fight, but in their minds, they didn't have a trophy to show for it. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
We did what we were asked to do, which is what no other foreign force in history had been able to do in the Argonaut Valley, but at a heavy cost. And every day, we live with that. And I think about it, man, is, I was a E8. I made the Sergeant Major list while I was over there. I was prepared for the hells of it because I've seen hell. I've seen my buddies get killed and shit. But what I wasn't prepared for was to see every day the pain on my guys' faces, but the strength that they had there, and then seeing when we got back, and since then, how that strength all turned to just pain, and that's why, man, like, I do everything I can to stay in contact with them, and it helps me a lot get through it. But I feel like with stuff like this, it's, for me, it's not so much telling their story. It's about me, myself, being transparent, open, and hopefully somebody hears it and say, hey, the old Sergeant Major, like you said, that looked like he put his freaking fist through my chest, feels the pain that I feel, and we do, man. And it's not more because I was a Sergeant Major, because I was a first sergeant. It's because I was a human being, number one, and two, I had responsibilities, and those responsibilities were life and death. And that's the other hard part, is you go from all that, and then you go to where I am now, and nothing is life and death anymore, And for my first few years out of the Army, man, I still stressed out about everything. I still got, I got fired up, I got pissed off and all that stuff. And now, I'll tell you, man, like, and I tell people this all the time, financially, since the COVID hit, I'm probably worse off than I've been in my adult life, except for when I was a young private with kids, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm making it fine. But what I'm saying is, 2 years ago, that would have like stressed me out to the point to where nobody would want to be around me. Nobody would. And I've learned to realize that, in the grand scheme of things, what matters is today and tomorrow. There's nothing I could do about losing a business. There's nothing I can do about any of that. The only thing I can do is keep chugging, keep keep trying to be, you know, not an inspiration for guys, but and not so much an example, just a, you know, a something for them to see that, hey, I know what this guy's done and he's having the same issues I am. So if he can talk about it, I can talk about it. And that's what I'm trying to get across with this, man. And you know, I feel pain every day, just like you do, from all my buddies that lost. I mean, hell, today is the 13-year anniversary of one of my real good friends, Callahan. I know I talked about him on our podcast.
Yep.
You know, you never forget those dates. And, you know, it's like Martin Luther King, I think he said it, but I used to have an old S3, and then he was my brigade commander. He used to say, you know, say their names, man. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to say their names,
yep.
because you want, and that's the other thing, man, like you were talking about, you know, you still feel that pain and you still carry it with you and you're still there, but you're here. But if you're able to actually open up about it, you know, you feel like, yeah, one foot's still there, but the other foot's moving away from it, you know?
Yeah.
If that makes sense to you. But yeah, man, I mean, it's like you go through life, you know, and you think, like, even me, man, I thought being a paratrooper, doing all that stuff was going to be like Hollywood and all cool, you know. I thought going to combat the first time was, you know, I was scared, obviously. If somebody says they weren't scared, they're either a sociopath or they're lying. Yeah. But you know, I was scared. And then, you know, we were good at it and we kicked ass, but you get to the point to where you start losing guys and you realize, okay, this is an important job, but this is something that it's not like in Hollywood. It's going to be with me for the rest of my life.
Right.
And you can live with it, man. You just have to understand that, yeah, you know, you may have left the place physically, but you're always, a piece of you always going to be there.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because if you can talk about it,
yeah,
if you can talk about the pain. I mean, hell, you know the deal. Like we talk, man, it's for all of us, not just senior leaders, not just leaders, period. It's about guilt, man, when you transition. Because one, like I have buddies that transitioned, you know, that got out before the war started. And I'm still friends with them, man, because we were good friends in the Army. And what they've told me over the years is, man, I should have came back in, you know, such and such got killed. I should have done this and I should have done that. And what I always tell them is, no, man, you did what you wanted to do, and you did your time honorably. You got out, you transitioned, and you went into another life. But even those guys that didn't go to combat, they still feel that pain because they feel a sense of responsibility to those guys.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and that's and that's kind of, I mean, I kind of went on a tangent, but with the Arghandab, man, it's one of those, and there are a lot of units that were in those fights. It's one of those fights that nothing in your career, nothing that you've trained for will ever prepare you for.
Yeah.
Both mentally and physically.
And, you know, I had a line in the beginning of this podcast for TPR and NPR when I was talking in the narration on the intro about the psychological impact of the IED. And I made the argument that the IED is the true psychological enabler on the battlefield. You know, often the sniper is brought up as the psychological greatest tool on the battlefield, but I would argue that the IED is that. And I made that argument in the beginning because I felt that what you experienced in the Arghandab and what a lot of units experienced in their different areas, whether it be out in the Korengal or in Helmand, what you guys experienced specifically in the Arghandab was a full 3D battlefield where you can't see the enemy. The enemy is blended in. And some of these charges had been set up months, even probably years at a time, that are taking out your guys. And there's nothing more frustrating or terrifying, quite honestly, psychologically, than to know that you're getting beat up by something that could have been set in the ground a year ago.
Yeah. We found, you know, when we talk about that, I had never heard the term legacy IED until until we got into the Arghandab. And, you know, we got in there December 19th, and our first, you know, push into the valley, we found probably 10, 15 legacy 500-pound IEDs that were
Jeez.
set up on the trails and all to take out vehicles,
Yeah.
But it was like, and I could feel the guy's pain, because think about it, man. You're a kid, you come in, you go right into becoming a paratrooper, you train your ass off for direct action. You're doing your platoon live fires, you're doing, platoon attacks, you're doing trenches, you're doing squad attack, you're doing CQB, and you're doing all that when you deploy in helmet. And then all of a sudden you go to this place to where the mission's not about killing the bad guys and taking over from them. The mission is about dominating your battle space and owning the terrain.
Yeah.
The win is keeping them out.
Yeah.
And to be a young guy, man, I could just see those guys, and to see the strength that they had to keep pushing because of their brothers, because, I would hear them, man. And I went out with them. And honestly, for the first time in combat, that was the only time I came to terms with the fact that I wasn't coming back, because I figured the odds were against me as a first sergeant, out there with them. But there was no way that myself or the CO could push those guys out in that shitty ass place and that kind of environment and not do it with them,
Do you feel that the Army set you up for failure in that valley, that they gave the practical measures to succeed out there? Because often what I've heard from the guys in Helmand and some of the Marines that I've heard is like, we just couldn't take the gloves off. Like, we weren't given the tools. And, Marines don't ever complain about that, because that's not their thing. They like to be the bulldog. But I've had a lot of Marine buddies complain about that battle space and say, quite honestly, they weren't given the tools to win. So do you believe that you had the tools in the Arghandab to do what it took to own that space?
Well, I'll tell you, man, when I was there, I was pissed off at my leadership. I was pissed off at Brigade and higher. I was pissed off at Task Force Kandahar, because, for example, we had pomegranate orchards everywhere. We had one lock, for those of you who don't know what that is a line of communication. So basically that's a route in and out from where we built our COP in a radish field. I wanted to blow down the radish field behind the COP. I wanted to blow down not the radish field, the pomegranate orchards along the route, so we could open up our line of sight, so we had some standoff, right? Mm-hmm. Well, we were not allowed to do that, because then we're taking away the locals' economy. We're cutting down their pomegranates and all that stuff. And at the time, I was about keeping my guys safe and kicking ass. And I didn't give a shit about the local economy. I didn't give a shit about the local people. All I cared about was getting my guys home. But I will tell you this, I think our command did everything our battalion command did what they could to support us, man. But when you're a light infantry company and this is 2009, by the time we had been at war for 8-9 years, you go into a place that's too dangerous for people to go into, and you and your guys have to drive Humvees, which are outlawed in country at that time, because you have this tiny lock in and out to bring all your equipment in to set up with no outside support and no help. Yeah. And then you, as the first sergeant and the company commander, have to take ownership of all that. You know? So I will tell you that I don't think, in anybody in a leadership position, because I've been there, orders come down and you have to accomplish the mission. But yes, at first, we weren't given what we needed. We made it happen, obviously, because we were paratroopers. Now, what they did do, which had never happened in my career, was we got EOD permanently attached to us as a company. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, they were Air Force guys. And when they told me Air Force was coming in, I was like, oh shit. I mean, God love them. God love them, but they're unless they're like a TACP or, everybody has a job, but they're a little different mentality than us.
Definitely.
But those guys came in, and I didn't know that, you know, in Air Force Spec Ops that they had EOD.
Yeah.
These guys were studs. I mean,
good.
when they came in, they were like, First Sergeant, we patrol what you guys, we do what you do. And that right there, you know, it kind of turned the fight around in the fact that we had some guys that actually understood what we were facing.
Yeah.
And they were able to use because we had a company intel team, but they were able to use our historical data on where we were going and all that stuff. And based off terrain, they're like, hey, First Sergeant, if you guys travel here 48 hours ago, that's where it's going to be.
Yeah.
So go back that way. It's going to be right there. And they were on it. And they were awesome, man, because like I said, we did have restrictions. We had gloves on. And, you know, I had been in the Wild West in Iraq where there were no gloves on. We kicked ass, you know, and I get it because at that time there was so much political turmoil and the war in Afghanistan. It wasn't about how many people we were killing. It was about controlling that space and stopping people from getting into Kandahar. But like, for example, we couldn't cut down the pomegranate orchards, right? So every time we found an IED on that route, and it just so happened that 5 or 6 pomegranate trees got blue with the bit. So we eventually cleared it, but without help. But man, I tell you, you know, as a senior guy, you understand a lot of it. You don't agree with it, but you do understand it. But I could imagine if I was a 20-year-old or 21-year-old corporal or sergeant in that valley and like, they just left us out here to hang, man, you know?
Because as you're saying all this, I'm hearing you still struggle with that sergeant major side of yourself, right? Of saying, you know what? The United States Army is the United States Army. It is the way it is. This is how it is. But the old E4 mafia side of me is going, yo, the Army screwed us. Like,
I mean, it's hard to talk about, man. And it is painful. Like, you know, and I'm not going to go into it, but I think we talked about it on our podcast about when Cop Brunkhorst got hit. And I knew it was going to happen, but my hands were tied. There was nothing I could do to stop it.
Yeah.
And I knew it was going to happen, you know, and I told myself later that if I was ever that guy in charge, I didn't give a shit. Guys were going to do what they needed to do to get shit done.
Yeah.
But you know, that happened. And then I was able to do what should have been done to start with, you know? But yeah.
I just wondered about this because I've had these discussions with some of these older dogs, and listen, you can get into the complexities of religious ideologies and why even being at war over there is problematic, right? Because in order to really commit to a war, you've got to be, you know, almost willing to kill every moving thing in order to get things done. And we know this is being in an infantry company, you know, being in the unit that I was in. But the old dogs like Paul Merriman, who was an Iwo Jima Marine, who I interviewed a few years ago before he passed away, one of the things he said to me, he said, is I see these magazines and I see these Marines building schools and it makes me furious. And I write a letter to the Marine Corps Times and I say, listen, we're not school builders.
Nope.
We're not here to bring you crayons. We're here to eat the crayons. And we're here to go out and kill every living thing. That was our job as Marines. And we did that in World War II. He said, now I'm seeing these pictures of Marines building schools, and that's not a Marine's job. We're pit bulls. That's our job. And Paul Merriman was one of the most peaceful, calm-worded men I've ever met. He went on to own a $140 million company after he got out of the Corps in 48 states and 2 countries. Extremely successful guy who was very well-versed in speaking, you know, saying what he needed to be said and, you know, speaking the corporate language. But man, I tell you what, when it came to the Marine Corps, it was gloves off when he started talking about the new breed of Marines and what he was seeing from command.
Well, dude, I feel the same way because like I said, I deployed into the invasion.
Yeah.
You know, we were trained all those years because I came in the Army in 92. We trained for direct action against Russians forever. And our number one job as paratrooper was airfield seizure and close with and destroy the enemy. That was it. There's no building schools. There's no winning hearts and minds, none of that stuff. And you know, us going against the Iraqi army, we crushed them. Too easy. And then when we got into the insurgency part and it went into sustainment operations, and I'm not, this wasn't so much my unit, but I saw units do it. Commanders come in, like you said, handing out soccer balls, thinking building a school is a win and all that stuff. Then those guys got hit so hard because the bad guys knew that they were the easy target.
Yeah.
They were the ones. And it's not the soldiers' fault. It's not the Marines' fault.
Nope.
And I mean, in most company and battalion commands, in their minds, they're doing what they're supposed to do based off of books and what they're told. And we used to get told, if you kill one, if you kill one person that wasn't a Taliban or Al Qaeda, then you created 10 more. And I mean, I kind of understand that in a way, because if somebody came here and killed somebody in my family, yeah, I would want to get some revenge, But us as professional paratroopers, professional infantrymen, professional Marines, we have rules of engagement, but we also have tactical directives.
Yeah.
And within the rules of engagement, if it stayed that way, there wouldn't be problems, because what's the number one rule of engagement? If you feel threatened, kill, right?
Yep.
Because you're authorized deadly force.
Of course, yeah.
And you teach guys that their whole military career, and then all of a sudden you're in combat, and it gets to the point to where it's sustainment and all that stuff, and then it's tactical directives come out, no warning shots.
Yeah.
Don't fire unless fired upon. Don't do this, don't do that. And the problem with that is I get it, I understand it, but what you do is you make young infantrymen and young leaders hesitate. And when they hesitate, that's when you have issues.
How can you not hesitate in a scenario like that?
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about 18 years old, 19 years old, and having a split second hit a 96 mile an hour fastball type of decision when you're kicking down a door and making a very real choice. And the guy's worried about pulling the trigger because I might go to jail. Something that did not exist in World War II.
No.
Obviously we're talking about a different battle space, a different time. And that's when it comes down to really the ideologies of the war and whether the wars are not or proper or improper, because ideology is a real thing, man. And if it comes down to the people you kill creating more terrorists, that's a problem in and of itself.
Yeah.
When we laid down blocks flat in Germany or in France and places like that, it didn't create a whole bunch of new enemy. The people understood that the war that we waged was very dangerous and some of the civilians were going to get killed. It's just a part of the deal. But something about over there and, the culture, it creates problems every time we kill. So then it's like, man, how can you win when an idea is always floating from one person to the next? You can't kill an idea, Mac, as you know. I mean, you can't.
No. And I think, the problem with Iraq and Afghanistan and places like that is, we went over there and took the fight to them. But, for example, in France, Germany, all these places, we would, like France, we would just blow shit up, right?
Yeah.
But that's because the bad guys were there trying to take over, you know. In Iraq and Afghanistan, that's all their homes.
Yep.
And we're trying to decipher who supports us and who doesn't. And we're trying to, as a culture, take, for example, Afghanistan, a culture that's been this way for thousands of years, and try to make them westernized. Let's do some democracy over here, man. Let's do all that. and the problem with it is, from one village to the next, you may as well be in another country.
Yeah.
And in the ideology aspect of it, it's funny you said that, because I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and I don't get into politics and all, but the ideology comes from the fact that I think, I live in X amount of block in Afghanistan, or a village in Iraq, or a village in Afghanistan. My source of real news and what is gospel is that guy that's coming over the mosque speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm taught my whole life that is the gospel. That's what I listen to. And I see it here in America, man. I mean, I see it with us now. with social media and news and everything, because, you know, we as a people were always brought up, one, news to be biased, you know, not be biased, where they just report and you
Right.
formulate your own opinions. But if you're a society that, you know, what this guy says is law or gospel, then you're going to deal with what we dealt with in those countries. And then, you know, if he says they killed this person, you will attack blah blah blah, then you're gonna recruit other guys and other gals and all that shit. So it was
not only that, they have no understanding of our culture and no care to understand our culture. You can't make a whole society buy in to a certain way of life, just like with democracy, like how we try to impose democracy in other countries. And I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with either war. I'm simply saying that you cannot make a country take on democracy if they've been rooted in an ideology that is the same way for thousands of years. Going into Vietnam, same mistake, man. You're trying to tell the people how they should think. And I think any Vietnam veteran that I've covered has said that that was a massive mistake. In trying to get a people to understand. Of course, there were massive corruption cases in Vietnam. A lot of the Southern Vietnamese were in with the Northern Vietnamese.
Oh, yeah.
And there was just so much more to that war as far as complexities, and it really resembles Afghanistan in a lot of ways. But Vietnam was such a problem space for that, because we're trying to instill a system of government that nobody was buying into, quite honestly, or very few. And you can't sell that kind of used car. You know, people don't want it. They're not going to want it. If you don't want freedom, I don't want you to want that because I want it. I want you to want it because of what it's what you want. And you know, Mac, how hard freedom is to instill, and the structure that we've instilled in this country is nothing short of a miracle, man. I believe God-given miracle, but it's a miracle nonetheless that we've been able to establish what we have for even the short time that we've had it, because no other country in the history of the planet has been able to do that, really.
No. And I mean, it's you know, there's a guy writing a book about my company, in the Arghandab, and, you know, he asked me a question, and I thought it was a valid question. And, you know, he asked other guys and had different answers, but he asked me, he's like, you know, kind of like we're talking about the war and all, but he was like, well, Sergeant Major, do you think it was all worth it? And what I will tell you, in my mind, it was all worth it. And the reason I say that, and I try to explain this to people, is when I joined the military, I joined because I wanted to serve. I became an infantryman, paratrooper, and all because that's what I wanted to do. You know, I never wanted to be a special forces guy or any of that stuff. I wanted to be a grunt, you know, and in my mind, and it might be different for me because I was in the Army for, you know, 8 years or whatever before the war kicked off, that, you know, for me, even in the Arghandab, I really didn't give a shit about the politics of the war. I didn't give a shit about any of that. You know, the only thing that I cared about was I was fighting side by side with some of the best human beings on the earth, and our job was what was in front of us, and that's what we had to take care of. And if I would have never been a soldier, then I never would have done the things that I've done, then I never would have been around human beings like that. So to me, it was worth it. Now, can I say if I was 19 years old and I went into that shitty place that I would say the same thing? Probably not, because it's kind of like Vietnam, man. I think me and you talked about this before, is none of us came back from those deployments winners. We just came back getting ready for the next one. You know, World War II vets, when they came home, they won the Super Bowl, man.
They did. They did.
Winners.
The Super Bowl of freedom.
Yeah. And the difference, and I think now that, you know, we kind of got into this, it sparked something with transition, is, you know, the difference between us and Vietnam was, one, when the war started, people supported it, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And two, you know, we didn't have people spitting on us and all that stuff. We actually had people in a lot of ways it's bad, because we got a lot of famous veterans out there that are full of shit. I hate to say it, but they are. But it came to the point to where everybody put veterans up on this high pedestal.
Yeah.
And then, you know, guys were coming back, getting out. And then still to this day, it's kind of the same thing. Like you said earlier, they get out, they transition, they don't have all that anymore. And then the coolness of the war has worn off. So, I gotta close this out. So the coolness of the war has worn off, and people aren't wanting veterans for everything. But yet these guys feel like, because I was in Iraq or I was in Afghanistan, you owe me.
Yeah.
And nobody owes you a damn thing, because like I said, you joined to serve with your brothers, you know.
And it's really, I think, Mac, that ideology can almost thrust us into a second type of Vietnam ideology with the American people if we're not careful.
Agreed.
Because that pedestal that we got put on is a very real thing, but I've seen plenty of us knocked off that pedestal and make fools of ourselves in a way that makes us look bad to the civilian population, to now where I see whole sections of society and civilians going, hey, what are these people over here? Why are they getting rewarded for this constantly? I don't like seeing that.
Yeah.
And it scares me badly, Mac. Because I tell my dad all the time, there may be a time when I'm doing this project and it's not very popular that I'm doing this work.
Yeah.
It may be that way. I don't know. You've got to be very careful about this pedestal mentality and thinking that you're in a special space because you're a veteran and you're a high of the community. We didn't go over there to earn respect. We went over there for the brotherhood. We went over there for the country. We went over there for the mission. Everybody has a different reason, but the reason is never to get respect, or it never should be.
Yeah.
And if you go over there for that, then you've got a lot of bad ideas of what joining the military really is, and you're going to get a rude awakening when you show up to the unit. But when you get out, I've noticed that this pedestal mentality could really work. It could work hard against us, man. And that scares me for the mentality of the overall culture, because I do see a lot of this. I do see some anti-veteran stuff out there now. You know, we're almost 18, 19 years down the road, almost 20, 2 decades of war. It's not long before, remember when Alexander was going into the valley in Afghanistan and his men threatened to kill him because they saw the mountains and they said, no, we're not doing this, Alexander. We've been fighting for 10 years. That was 10 years. We fought for 20. The American people are sick of war. Yeah. We are too. I mean, we've taken the brunt of it, but the American people are sick of war, and they're sick of being reminded of war. So it scares me with the mentality of the overall culture. We could enter a second type of Vietnam phase if, you know, and it's up to some of us to stop asking for things and to continue just working as good citizens of this country. And I believe that.
Yeah, man. No, I 100% agree with you. I mean, you know, what I talk to young guys about this all the time, and I tell them, I'm like, nobody owes you anything. Mm-hmm. Nobody. I don't care who it is. Nobody owes us anything. Mm. The only person that owes us anything is ourselves, because we're the ones that decided to do this. We're the ones that went here. So we did that. We served. We did what we had to do. Now we owe it to ourselves to figure out how to take care of ourselves. Because if we can do that, then we can be better stewards of being a veteran, you know, and be better human beings, but also better Americans.
Yes.
Because, and like I said, man, I don't get into politics and I get it. But like, even, you know, with the elections and all that stuff, you know, you see all these social media guys saying, yeah, we're ready for the war. You know, there's a population that's been at war for 20 years that's ready to go, blah, blah, blah. And you know the deal, man. 99% of us that have seen all that shit and have been there would never, ever, ever, ever want to see anything like that on our soil.
Not here. No, sir.
But
not here. Yeah.
But when you see those veteran pages and all that stuff doing this, it's what we said before, man. It's to people, perception is reality.
Yep.
And if they perceive us all to be warmongers, you know, and feel like we're better than everybody else, you lose support.
Yeah, and listen, the cats that are really ready to do something in the case of emergency, break glass, guess what? They're not talking about it all over their social media. They're out in Southern Pines quietly in the basement, getting things ready. they're not out there being loudmouths about everything. They're just ready for whatever comes, my man. And they don't want that. They're not inviting that, but they are prepared. You know what I'm saying? And so like these pages. Exactly. I agree 100%. It's like you'd never want that on your own soil. We did not fight for that. We fought for the opposite of that. We fought for the opposite of divisiveness. And yet we keep coming upon this subject of divisiveness, right? Like that is a very real thing in this country, but we only increase the divide when we talk more and more about civil war. Like shut your mouths, like stop talking about that. It has no place. Like it's okay to be ready. It's okay to be ready to go to war. You should always be ready to go to war, but at the same time, it's the last thing you want. So stop saying we as a population are ready and prepared to do whatever it takes. We don't want to fight anybody on our own territory or country. There are guys that I flat out disagree with. I'm disgusted by their opinions very often. I don't want to kill them. I don't want to harm them. They're fellow Americans. They have the right to their opinions.
Yeah, I mean that's to me today, and it's kind of like the Sunnis and the Shiites in Iraq. We're getting to the point to where if you don't believe what I believe, then you're wrong.
Yeah,
and that's not right.
Tribalism is very dangerous in America. Tribalism is dangerous here. It's one thing to have a group you associate with and that you're more comfortable with, and it's an entirely different thing to take on the whole idea and context of what that is and make that your battle cry. That's a whole different thing. And I see a lot of that in society nowadays where it's like, oh, you're wrong. You shouldn't live here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's like, are you telling me that? I mean, basically what you're saying is you want me dead. And I got a problem with that. That's a sad, sick, and disgusting idea for fellow Americans that live here. It used to be the thing that you had an idea I didn't like. We could discuss it and discourse. If at the end of the day we disagreed, we went our separate ways. I don't have to be your friend. I'm not going to be your pal. Heck, I have very few friends anyway. So my inner circle is my inner circle, And you know what, though? I respect your right to live in this country and enjoy the freedoms to say what you want to say. Even if I think those ideas are ridiculous, it is a privilege to have those ideas. And it is the first culture in the world, really, that's been enabled to share those ideas and share those thoughts openly.
Well, man, and it's to me, it's just we've got to the point in our society, and people have pretty much forgotten about the war. Mm-hmm. I mean, really look at September 11th. If you ask a lot of kids nowadays about what exactly happened and all, they won't know.
They weren't even there, bro.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is, I tell people, in my adult life, the best I have ever seen Americans and America is the day after September 11th.
Yeah.
Because for the first time in my adult life, there was no politics. It was everybody being American.
Yeah.
And I wish we could get back to that, man. I mean, because you and I both have, hell, I like my guns. I like, look at me. I'm not a freaking, whatever, but I don't care if you don't like guns. I don't care. Yeah. I don't care. You don't have to be around my guns.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah.
And man, I have liberal friends out in LA. I know you got liberal friends. Mm-hmm. And I love them just like everybody else. Our opinions may differ on some things, but who gives a shit?
Yeah.
And I see this in our community a lot, man. And it's like, I guess from moving up and seeing kind of the politics of everything is what people don't understand, man, is your actions, even though you think you're being cool or funny or whatever, they're going to have second and third order effects always.
Yep. Yeah.
Especially nowadays. Yeah. And especially if people look up to you.
Yeah.
And I'll say, man, I probably should have responded, but I posted a picture of me and my old brother Bobby Carrasquillo. He was my medic, I have one, and my future son-in-law. A couple weeks back, we were shooting, and I thought it was a cool picture, and I put "Hail the Apocalypse,"
Mm-hmm.
and I was just thinking Avatar, the
Yeah,
heavy
yeah,
metal
yeah.
band. Well, and I never hardly post on Facebook, just on Instagram, because Facebook, everybody hates each other. But so I posted the picture, and a guy that I know that's he's a really good guy in DC. He called me out on it. He's like, that's not the he said, that's not the type of thing guys need to see from you right now. And I was like, and I thought about it, and I was like, well, I can fucking post a picture of me with guns all day long if I want to, man. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, yeah.
But it was at that election time, and it was all that stuff. And I said, "Hail the apocalypse!" And I'm sitting there, and like he said, there's so many guys that look up to you. This guy's a media guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's like, that's probably not the right thing for you to post right now. And I didn't think about it, but then when I looked at it, I understand now that guys do look up to me,
Yeah, yeah.
guys, and it was, I wasn't thinking anything about it, but it's perception is reality,
Yeah.
like I said, because I said, "Hail the apocalypse," because, the election was there, the inauguration was coming up. Everybody thought we were going to have a war and all that stuff. So, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I will tell you, I didn't take the picture down.
Yeah, yeah. I'm proud of you for not doing that.
No, but my point is I understand what he was saying, though.
I get it. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And bro, believe me, in media and journalism, I can't show any biases in what I do, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very much a libertarian, and I just want freedom for everybody, right?
Yeah.
I'm a Christian. I have certain ideas about the way that a Judeo-Christian society what they should value and what they should carry and uphold. I certainly carry those values, but I will tell you that I'm a big freedom fan overall. So for me, I can't, but I have to be very careful in my personal Instagram and what I discuss and what I value, because there are arguments that make me flat out irate, brother.
Yeah.
Same. Back 10 years ago, I would have gotten into it full bore, like, threatening to come over your house and punch you in the face, type of ideas. Yep. The young hothead in me, right? The young team leader in an infantry unit. But, I can't be that guy anymore because of the weight of what we carry with this project. And with the biases, I can't show them. I've covered everything from liberals to staunch right conservatives to people that are more kind of libertarian in the middle like myself. I have to be able to always cover those folks. And guess what? You shut yourself out of a lot of conversations if you show yourself one way or the other, right? And so I think that's probably what your media friend was talking about.
Uh-huh.
Your ability to have those discussions comes from a place of showing non-bias. Now, when I'm living in the middle and then people come and meet me there and tell me there's still a problem with that, then I have to stand my ground, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's different. But for me, I value you. I value both what he said, and I value you not taking that picture down, because you have the right to do that, and he has the right to make his statement about what he thought was proper or not.
But and my point about that was, it was in no way, shape, or form intended the way that he perceived it was.
Totally, yeah.
But he perceived it that way, and that's why I'm saying, like, if you're an influencer on Instagram or whatever, it's kind of like when I was in the Army. I mean, you can imagine working for me. I was an asshole.
I can imagine that it would have sucked.
Yeah, I didn't take any shit, and I always got pissed off and everything.
Uh-huh.
And I got to the point to where I would have, even as a battalion sergeant major, my battalion commander, look at my emails before I sent them.
Yes,
because he would be like, they'd be like, "Sergeant major, don't send that email." But because, even though I know what I'm saying, I'm pissed off, but I'm not trying to make it as bad as it seems.
Yeah.
It can be perceived that way because, a text message, an email,
Yes.
social media post, it's all up for interpretation.
Brother, you're speaking to the heart of what I do in my
Yeah.
work, in that it has to appear non-biased. So anything coming from the founder of the Veterans Project can be seen one way or the other. I have to be so careful with my stuff that I'll post something on a story, and before I even put it on the Instagram stories, I'll send it to my assistant. And I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, is this look okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm not even sure what you're asking about. And I'm like, well, I don't want this perception.
Yeah.
And she'll okay me on things. She's very wise when it comes to the council. But I have to have that, man, because I don't want things to be perceived wrongly.
Yeah.
And my dad always said that discretion is a massive thing.
It is.
You do have to think about your words. You have to think about the way they're perceived, because people take them differently. Having freedom does not mean exercising those freedoms to the point of hurting others all the time.
Yeah.
There's discretion there.
And I mean, at the end of the day, man, I mean, like, for example, what you were talking about, just like me, years ago, I'd get pissed off at somebody or whatever. I'd go over there and punch them in the damn face. I'd get in a fight, whatever. But at the point in my life now, I'm knocking on 50's door. None of that shit matters, man.
Yeah.
It doesn't, because at the end of the day, it's not going to change anything. And I just, what I try to do in my daily life, man, is just be me.
Yeah.
And I hope that when people see that, they're like, hey, now I am biased on one thing that I'm openly biased about is heavy metal. But
yeah.
But like, my point is like, I don't do politics and all that stuff, because to me, that doesn't matter. My beliefs on politics or religion or whatever has nothing to do. It has no there's no reason for it to even come up in a conversation with me and somebody, especially somebody I just met.
Right.
And when people start that with me, they lost me at hello. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
Exactly.
dude, a lot of the problems, not liberals, not conservatives, but with Americans nowadays, is the fact that we've truly forgotten where we came from, and we're oblivious to what the rest of the world is like right now.
Oh, I know. Totally. And you and I've seen it in those other places, man. People that don't have a frame of reference for how bad it can get don't realize what they can possibly lose, right?
Yep.
Right?
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, be very careful what you wish for, because you and I have seen the places where sometimes certain people wish for something, and that left a whole other part of society subjugated and left out and tortured and brutalized.
Yep.
We were just talking with a guy who was on the, who was at the killing floor, as part of one of the B team squadrons that went in and, took the stadium back from the Taliban, and did some laying to waste, as we would say. And they took that place back. And, he said the amount of blood that would never come out of that tile, and you could never fully wash it or clean it. People don't realize that there are to think that there are not segments in a free society that are evil or bad or want to damage those freedoms. It's just a lie, man. It's just a lie. We're doomed to repeat history if we don't know it and we don't respect it.
Yeah. And to be an old guy now, like I definitely understand the fact that, and I will say I was one of those guys in the military that is resistant to change. Resistant, there's the old saying, you got to embrace the technology, and today, the difference between when I was in my 20s and somebody in their 20s today is they have a voice that they think everybody listens to. When I was in my 20s, the only voice I had was my buddies, the people right around me, and I could call somebody every once in a while.
Yeah.
And even then, they didn't give a shit what I said.
Yeah.
But the point is, I understand that society has to adapt. I understand it has to. embrace the technology. I understand all that. And I've tried to get better with dealing with stuff like that, especially with my daughters and all. But we have to understand, especially as older guys, those us war vets, man, is like, okay, let those people believe what they want to believe,
Yeah.
do their little thing, because at the end of the day, man, we have nothing to prove to anybody,
No.
Like if somebody came to my house and wanted to come in and do something, they would have a bad day.
Yes.
But
They would.
you know what I'm saying?
Confirmed.
Or if life got that crazy,
Yeah.
I would call you and my other brothers and we would get together and we would protect what's ours.
Yep, absolutely.
But
we're not there to destroy anything.
No.
We're there to defend what we have, just as we were defending the brotherhood overseas.
Bingo. And and that's what it's about, is the brotherhood, being Americans,
Yep.
And that's what I love about our community too, man, and guys that are listening to this, I hope you kind of understand where I'm getting at here, is like most of us, if we hadn't went in the military, would have never, ever, ever been friends with some of the guys we are now.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Based off of our region where we came from, our culture, ideology, our political, religious beliefs, all that stuff, because none of that matters in the military.
Man, you're making a great point, Mac. We would have stayed in a lot of the same sociocultural, economic, same circles, and we would have never really expanded ourselves outside of that. I was fortunate to grow up in Military City, USA, San Antonio. So I was around all mixes of race, religion, creed. But most people stay in the circles that they know, and they cling to that. And that's one of the massive problems you see in society today, right?
Yeah.
People just hearing the echo chamber, constantly speaking back and forth to them. They're not getting any other ideas of what society could be or how to respect other people's opinions. They're just hearing regurgitated ideas over and over again, and they're echoing those ideas. And that's always a problem. That's a problem in any free society.
Yeah, man. I mean, even me, dude, I'm 48. I'll be 48 years old in a month, I have buddies and all back in Louisiana that are still doing the same shit they did when we were teenagers.
Yeah.
Which
is highly problematic.
Yeah. And, man, like when I go back home, I hear people say stuff that is just ignorant, and it eats at my core, but I'm like, all right, well, they're not talking to me. So, and at the end of the day, I lived a different life.
That's not your life anymore. Yeah.
And that's why, like, truthfully, I didn't want to move back home. I didn't want to, because I learned what I learned in the military, and hell, it's just like playing sports, is the only thing that matters is you as a person, your integrity.
Yeah.
If you're a piece of shit, you're a piece of shit. It doesn't matter what color, race, creed, religion, political beliefs. And if you're a good person, you're a good person. And
your ability to accomplish the mission where performance is actually rewarded, right?
Yeah. Bingo, man.
Yeah. You know that.
Yeah. So
I was just gonna say that the duty bound side of us is so important. I wanted to know if it was okay if I read this poem on your on the podcast. I wanted to read this. I'm a poet. I write a lot. That's what I do in the project. Of course, I have to write these massive transcripts, and I have to write an introduction and conclusion. Writing is a huge part of my life, and it always has been. So I wanted to read this. This is called "The Charge of the Light Brigade" by Alfred Lord Tennyson. It says, half a league, half a league, half a league onward, all in the valley of death rode the 600. Forward the light brigade, charge for the guns, he said. Into the valley of death rode the 600. Forward the light brigade. Was there a man dismayed? Not, though the soldier knew someone had blundered. There's not to make reply, there's not to reason why, there's but to do and die. Into the valley of death rode the 600. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them, volleyed and thundered. Stormed it with shot and shell. Boldly they rode and well into the jaws of death, into the mouth of hell. Rode the 600. Flashed all their sabers bare, flashed as they turned in air, sabering the gunners there, charging an army, while all the world wondered. Plunged in the battery smoke, right through the line they broke. Cossack and Russian reeled from the saber stroke, shattered and sundered. Then they rode back, but not the 600. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon behind them, volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell, while horse and hero fell. They that had fought so well came through the jaws of death, back from the mouth of hell. All that was left of them, left of 600. When can their glory fade? Oh, the wild charge they made. All the world wondered. Honor the charge they made. Honored the light brigade. Noble 600. I love that poem because it speaks so well to the heart and soul of the infantrymen.
Yes.
There's not to question why, there's but to do and die.
Exactly.
I don't care what the odds are. I don't care what the ideology is. I do what my country tells me, and I fight with my brotherhood.
Bingo, man. And that's what and that's the other thing that makes us so much better than our foes, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we chose to do what we did.
Yeah.
You know, no one made us do that. Nobody pulled our arms and all that crap. So, you know, I mean, man, like, I don't know, for me, just being an old guy and, you know, seeing what I see, I could still be, and I hate to be the I guy, but I could still be that guy wearing a high and tight, walking around acting like I'm still freaking wearing E9 rank in the Army. You know, I mean, seriously, because I've seen it.
I've seen it.
Yep. Well, I know guys like that, but at the end of the day, dude, that's not who I am. That was my role in the military. But as a human being, I was Mac, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why, like, for me, man, like, I could have got a job working on post, and I get all these offers to go do contracting working on. I didn't want any part of a military job anymore because I don't want guys to look at me as that guy. You know? I want guys.
And that's why I value, though, for who you are, Mac, and meeting you where I met you. The guy still wearing the high and tight, the guy that's been out for 10 years and still acts like he's back in garrison or in a combat zone. That's the guy that I want to punch in the face, quite honestly. Like, when I'm out, I'm like, dude, get over it. Like, I respect you, but you earned that respect. Don't demand that respect from me, because nobody out here cares, and they don't need to. What you did was wonderful, but don't try to demand respect from me now. That's got to still be earned now and moving forward. I didn't know you when you were in. Yeah. And so for me and you, what made me respect you is not your combat experiences. It's part of that, but it's not your incredible career. It's who you are and the loving and acceptance that you showed immediately in the house, moving forward, having the background that you had, and still being kind, loving, and accepting. That's what made me love you right away and go, yeah, this dude's a brother. Like, I would have never been tight with this guy in the Army. I would have walked 1,000 miles away from this dude. I see that sergeant major. I'm going, no. Yeah. You know, I was E4 Mafia expert. I mean, I would have been far away from you. So, you know, seeing you outside of the military and seeing what you've come through in transition, don't get me wrong, I respect the hell out of the sergeant major, but it is also a very scary occupation where I know you could crush my soul in 0.5 seconds. So I would avoid that because I was taught respect by my parents always. And so for me, I respect that. But seeing you outside of that makes me want to be friends and brothers with that person, because I've seen what a lovely human being you are outside of the military and transitioning and moving forward, and how much you're trying to provide people with going forward with, you know, being on a movie set and with the Max Man Cave chats and all that you're going to accomplish going into the future. Brother, it's a real siren of positivity. It's a lighthouse to guys that are struggling and can't find their way in the darkness. And we talk about mental health often with our new partner, Heart Support. Yeah. But you have that darkness all around you, and you're searching for somebody that's an example and somebody that's been in your position in your career to give that lighthouse effect is an incredible healer for men. I'd guarantee that you've saved some lives, brother, because of how you are and who you are. And don't ever keep being that light, because God knows we need you.
Well, I mean, dude, in I hope it don't sound cheesy, and I talk to guys that I stay in contact with a lot, man. But truthfully, man, being brothers and friends with guys like you keeps me alive, man. Because and and I hear it from guys like I'm friends with some of my old soldiers now. Like I can talk to them and chill with them, and they will tell you, like, I'm gonna have Jared Lemon on here. He's one of my guys that lost his right arm in the Argandab. He's literally like a little brother to me.
Yeah. Wow.
When he was in my company, I gave him a field grade because he did some. We're not going to talk about that. We'll talk about it on podcast. But me and him were talking the other night, and he was like, you probably don't remember it, but when you crushed me, I literally thought my life was over.
Yeah.
Because I was really good at that. But he's like, but what you did was after all was said and done, you pulled me in your office and you were like, look, man, this doesn't define who you are. It defines who you are right now, but what you do tomorrow truly defines who you are.
Yeah.
And he took that to heart, man. And he wound up being one of the best NCOs I had, and I also told him, don't think because I'm in this position or other people in this position that we haven't done the same type things you did, and to be able to talk to guys about stuff, like, it's almost like I told Steven, like when we made the movie, man, in the Army as a senior NCO, you have to be an actor if you're a good one, because you have to crush that soul. You have to instill the discipline and everything. But at the end of the day, you're looking at this kid like this is a great human being that made a mistake. But I can't show any leniency on him because if I do, I'm not going to help him.
Right.
And it's kind of like the thing I tell guys, and they ask me for advice, on leadership. I tell them, number one, be seen. But number two, remember, as a leader, you're not anybody's friend. You're their leader. So taking care of them is not taking care of them. But to what we were just talking about like me and you being friends and all, like being in and being that guy is so tiring, man.
Yeah. I mean, I told you I couldn't reflect that. I mean, my obviously I was only a team leader, but my team leadership my team leadership style was much more huggy and hands-on. But there had to be a place of line that guys did not cross. And, my style of leadership, Mac, invited more problems in because guys would sometimes take advantage of that. And then I had to work backwards to crush their soul, instead of like knowing like, hey, you don't step this line, knowing like, oh, I can come to Kolzak and say that or whatever, we could talk that out. Instead of knowing like the line was there, they didn't know the line was there. So I had to, punch them in the throat and let them know that line was there. But, so your style of leadership really demands that respect up front. But where I agree with you and where I love what you did 100% is that you were all about mission accomplishment and the betterment of growing not only soldiers, but growing young men into responsible adults. And that speaks volumes, man. And your effectiveness in combat can't be argued against because you got the job done.
Yeah, well, I mean, man, it's like anything else, man. It's like, you always hear the lead from the front, right? Lead from the front, lead from the front. Mm-hmm. What does lead from the front mean to you?
Being out there in the action and getting after it first, being the first guy to take that responsibility on.
Now you see, when I was a sergeant, staff sergeant, that's what I truly thought leading from the front was. Mm-hmm. Being the guy that everybody's going to follow into the freaking onto the X, kicking in the door, all that stuff, which is true.
Yeah. But
truthfully, even in the civilian world, leading from the front is just being the example.
Yeah.
Like, okay, if I tell you this is what you need to look like, then I'm going to look like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
If I tell you you need to max a PT test, I'm maxing a PT test.
Yeah.
If I tell you we're going to do a 12-mile foot march and we're going to do it in under 3 hours, in order for me to lead from the front, I need to be the guy that can do it in under 3 hours as well. But I've met a lot of guys in the military that truly didn't lead from the front because when they were NCOs, senior NCOs and all, they were physically weak, this or that. But their idea of leading from the front was when we went into the shoot house, they were the number one man.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, in combat, yes, I'm out there with my guys, but at the end of the day, they don't know it yet, but they need to see what I'm doing. And that's why I tell guys, even now, when they ask me for advice as being a leader, number one, be seen.
Yeah.
If they see you every day, then they know you're doing something. But also with being seen, you have to be seen. You have to be strapped. You have to be the guy that when you walk by, they're like, oh shit, they're checking their shit to make sure their shit's right.
I mean, and that's and more what I meant is figurative and not, necessarily kicking down the door first, but showing the guys constantly. In fact, I mean, the times that I would make my guys push, I'm on the ground pushing with them. I'm like, why are you making me suffer, brother? Why are you making me suffer?
But because that's leading from the front. But that's leading from the front because like, how can I, as an NCO, counsel a guy for not making whatever the battalion standard is or whatever on a PT test if I can't do it myself?
Right. Yeah.
How can I tell you to go maneuver over here in Afghanistan or go walk up this mountain if I can't do it myself?
Yeah.
Now there are times as a leader to where obviously you have to be behind the formation, and that's why I tell guys, and as a young squad leader, team leader, leading from the front is being in the front, but it's also setting the example. You are an expert. You're the expert at your job. You know every aspect of what everybody else's job in your squad is, and you're the example for all of them to follow. And if you can do that, your guys will, like, it will blow your mind. Like I tell you, man, I don't know if we talked about it on our podcast, but just real quick. Like, for example, when I was a squad leader, right? When we did a PT test, there were a lot of times where I would run my guys on the PT test as a squad. And I'd get yelled at for it. And I'm like, according to FM 2120, I can do that. The only thing it says is I can't physically push, shove, help, whatever. And the reason I did that was because we were together and none of the guys wanted to let the other one down and be that guy that fell back, because on a PT test, running is usually the hardest thing for most people.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. And it's not because they're not good runners or this and that. It's because of because it's 2 miles and you have to do it as fast as you can. And a lot of guys let it mentally beat them before they even start.
Yeah. It just sucks.
It does because 2 miles don't sound bad, but the problem is you've already done push-ups and sit-ups, but you're also starting cold on that 2 mile.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and you're trying to pace it all too, and pacing 2 miles is just annoying. Like, it's very annoying.
But that's, I was a max my PT test guy, right?
Yeah.
So I ran my guys as a squad, and we ran together that way. And then about 400 meters out, I would release them. And I can tell you, even as a weapons squad leader, and this is almost unheard of, but I can show you my NCOERs. I had a 298 PT average as a squad.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's amazing. Yeah.
But the thing is, and I had a couple big dudes, man, that sucked at running. Like, they could meet the standard, like even a division run, but when it came down to it, to me, they sucked at running because they couldn't run like me. Now, granted, I weighed 170 pounds, but my point is because of the mentality that they had, and they were all leaders in their own right, that when we did that, there was no way, shape, or form either one of them was going to fall out.
Right.
They were going to stay with me, but that wouldn't have worked if I wasn't right there, right beside him saying, hey, you guys better goddamn stay within arms. You know, but that's my point is, and it's hard, man. It's hard. And I really learned that, and it crushed my soul as a sergeant major when I broke my neck. The first time my guys are doing a jump and I can't jump with them, and my leaders are like, hey, they don't need to, just go out there, JMPI and all. They don't know why you're not jumping. But at me, it was eating at my soul because I felt like I wasn't leading by example,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what, I think is so great about the military, man, is that we do have those type of people. And the reason I was like that is because I was taught that way at an early age. And I learned from great leaders, that I had some leaders that were cool, but when I look back on it, they didn't teach me shit, so those are the guys that teach you stuff, man. And then now for me in the civilian world, I look at guys like you to teach me because no, but I'm serious, man. Like you, with what you do, you set the example for me to follow.
Man, I appreciate that.
No, but I'm serious, man, because the way I look at it is like, and I mean, think about it. When I was a first sergeant, you can imagine what I talked about National Guard guys.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Nasty.
And then I even caught myself doing that in the nonprofit world when I got out. And one of my buddies called it on it because he's like, dude, you'll be talking to somebody and you ask them what unit they're in, and they're like, oh, I'm in whatever National Guard. And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is I immediately judged them, and
right. Totally.
to lead by example and lead from the front, that is not how you do it. Just like I had a guy ask me, the one that's writing the book about, POGs, personnel other than grunt, low density MOSs. And I told him, 10 years ago, I would have, they were second class citizens, in the Army. But, and then he's like, well, what do you think about those guys having PTSD and all that shit? And I told him 10 years ago, I'd have said, like, they're full of shit. There's nothing wrong with them, blah, blah, blah. But what I learned as I grew up was it doesn't matter, what the situation is. Situations are going to be different. But the effects of those situations on different individuals are going to be the same. For example, if I'm a cook on CAF, at Kandahar Airfield, and I'm getting rocketed every day, I'm living on 100,
Yeah.
Even though I'm not out there getting shot at every day, but I'm still living there with the possibility of getting killed. And to me, because I didn't join the military to go fight, I'm living that stress every day. Mm-hmm. And then I get out and that stress is still there. And in a way, that stress is what keeps you alive. And then you get out and you have that stress, but you don't have that type of mission anymore, and you don't have the importance. And that's when the issues come in with the transition. And I respect the hell out of anybody in the military, any MOS, anything like that. Nobody's second class citizens. Everybody had a job to do. And I can't be pissed off at one guy because he didn't decide to do dumbass shit like me and jump out of planes at fucking 2:00 in the morning in 30-degree weather. Everybody has their path. And and that's why, like, even now, man, like when I talk to people, I don't care what your MOS was. I don't even care if you're in the military, man. It doesn't matter to me anymore. What matters is what we're doing right now, man, is just being a good human being and, being yourself and living for the moment and living for what's going to happen the next day.
Yeah.
And for me, man, as an old guy, and a lot of people are like, you're not old. Well, in the military, I was old. But to be able to transition out, and like I said, obviously I'm not rich or nothing, but to have the experiences I've had since I've retired, and to be able to become friends with the people I have, and to be able to reach out to my guys that used to work for me that I never could have been their friend, to be their friend, to be their brother, to let them know that, hey, dude, we're all going through the same shit, man. Like for you guys, man, Tim, like I'm telling you, bro, that it truly keeps me alive. Like staying together at the house, man, on Cincinnati and just chilling. I mean, hell, when I wasn't filming or whatever, we were just hanging out when you were taking pictures, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like talking to you, laughing, making jokes, dude. That right there fills that hole in my heart, man. And that in my
late
soul.
night Wendy's runs.
Yeah, but that's what it's about, man. And we're all here for each other that way, you know, and that's the way we still have to be. And that's why I'm trying to do this, man. And I know that's why you do what you do, because it's important, but it's also important even more so that guys like you and I lead from the front now more than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's imperative that we stand as an example, not because we want to, but because we're put in that place. Just the way as in the military, probably didn't want to be the example sometimes. You probably just wanted to, you know, for me sometimes wanted to curl up in the fetal position, you know, like I'm done with this, you know. But your job and your position puts you in a place where you do that. I have to accept the responsibility of what I'm doing with the Veterans Project and being an example to guys because of I chose to do this work. It was my decision to do that. And if I don't accept all that's with it, guess what? Nobody cares, man. Nobody cares if I don't accept that responsibility. In the end of the day, it's my responsibility and it's what I chose for my life. And I don't want to give up that responsibility until I've got one foot in the grave, my man. I love what I do. Do I love the responsibility of it all the time? No, I don't. Who does? But I love that I have the ability to capture one of the few things that matters in life, and that's legacy, man, because every moment is passing, right? We're always passing moments. What is legacy all about? Legacy is about grabbing onto those memories and freezing them in time and giving people a real chronicle of what men like you, men like Major Capers, men like Woody Williams, incredible, you know, Medal of Honor recipients, down to, you know, guys who were having it out in the mountains of Korengal, to, you know, guys who were on Iwo Jima. It doesn't matter. For me, it's about providing a legacy place where people can go and see those historical chronicles and capture that moment in time and understand what we went through as a community and as a society. And now what we're going through and transitioning and reintegrating out, that's the real inspiration, right?
Yeah.
What we're being able to do moving forward. The Nate Boyers of the world, never playing football his entire life, and then trying out for one of the greatest, you know, D1 schools there's ever been and making it on their football team. That drive that made him a Green Beret is, you know, that 11 out of 166 guys that made it through his program and then goes into and plays football at UT.
Yeah.
Rudy Reyes, same thing, being in both invasions. What you went through. Any one of these guys that accomplishes extremely high level, super focused pins and needles type of activity in their life, you have to have a secondary driver that pushes you. My job is to capture that driver and to showcase what you guys are doing going forward in life. And so things like Max Man Cave chats, watching you on a movie set, acting, freezing in a river, doing the command sergeant major thing, shirtless, you know, in water that's probably like negative 500 degrees, you know, your ability to transition out. And guess what, dude? When you're leaving the set and when you left, I saw the real secondary, tertiary effects of you leaving. People were like, oh, I miss Max so much. He's so awesome. Like, as soon as you flew off on your plane, it's like part of the spirit was sucked out of the set. People were like, man, Mac, I loved him. He was so awesome. And guess what? The people that were saying that were all civilians, man.
Yeah.
And so that effect that you had, like getting out and your kindness and your heart that you showed, you have heart in ways that I don't sometimes, where I'm like, man, I probably left. And they were like, Tim's gone. Yeah. But when you left, there was a real, like, you know, such a aura that you left behind, and your strength in moving on and past your service, man. I have all the respect in the world for that, for a guy that did so much time in your career at such a high level, to see the respect that you garnered while you were on that set was just a beautiful thing. What did we spend like 3 weeks together in that
Yeah.
house or something? I mean, that was an incredible time. And really, I watched you the whole time and I was just like, man, I'm going to miss this dude. Like, this guy's amazing. Like, it's very rare for me to miss somebody that I meet within 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But man, when you stepped away from the set, I did miss you, bro. Me and Nate both missed you. So it's important. These legacies are important, man. Capturing what you guys are doing in your everyday civilian life now, it's so impactful, and we need it.
Well, dude, it what you said right there, though, like I said, man, you guys are what keeps me alive. And I tell people all the time, my goal, if I make it to be an old man, is to not be Clint Eastwood on Gran Torino. I don't want to be the salty old veteran. I want to be the old dude sitting on my porch drinking a beer. Somebody goes by, hey, how you doing? Because I spent my whole adult life fighting.
Yeah.
And having lives in my hands. And now, for me, I truly feel like, because I've always been this guy, I've always been Mac, but to be able to just be myself every day for me is so therapeutic, man, because I could have hid behind everything with the Sergeant Major persona, because that's what most guys do, man, because it's a way to cope and it's a way to hide.
It's easy too, right?
Yeah.
It's easy.
Because you don't let go of it. Because if you don't let go of it, it's there, and then everything else is still locked back here, and but I had to let go of it because I honestly, I got to the point, man, to where I knew that if I didn't let go of it, that it was going to turn bad,
Yeah.
And like I said, man, there's so many stories I could tell, so many things, so much stuff that just haunts me and haunted me. And there was so much stuff I couldn't talk about before, but now to be able to be a point in my life as a person, spiritually, physically, everything, to be able to face these things is so good for me because I'm facing it on my terms,
Yeah.
And I was, just like we were talking about, man, my first couple of years, I was letting the transition, all of that, guide the way of everything that I was doing, as opposed to I should have been doing what was right for me at the time to get myself right, both spiritually, mentally, physically, everything. And it took me a while, even when I went out there with you guys for Century Day, I was still working through some shit, and I still work through things every day, but I'm at the point now to where at the end of the day, if it gets bad, then I talk to my wife.
Yeah.
Or I talk to you, or I talk to Steven, or I talk to Rudy, or I talk to my buddy Derek, or I talk to my buddy Cavazos, but I'm able to talk about things. And that's what with this, I tell these guys and gals, I'm like, just hit me up, man. I love talking. Like, I will talk for hours, because it's just the human aspect of it. It's like being in the Army and the pillars of leadership, and then how you had your taking care of your soldiers spiritually, physically, being, all that stuff. Like, I didn't realize back in those days that doing all that was actually, you thought you were doing it for them, but you're really doing it for yourself. You know? And I'm being a little selfish now, man, because I just want to be Mac, man. I
don't think that's selfish to want to be yourself, brother. I think that's a natural product of your kindness and your selflessness. Is you've realized the value in who you are as a person doesn't have to be you, the command sergeant major, right? A role in leadership that you take on. As you know, with family, man, that has to be very different than how you treat your family. You come home and you treat your wife and kids like that, and they're looking around like, who the heck do you think you are? You know, like it doesn't go so well, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I wouldn't be with my wife of 27 years now, you know.
yeah. And you know that. You've seen that there's an identity and there's a role that you have to play when they're in the army, and that
Yeah.
taking that home can be extremely damaging.
Well, you know, it's funny you said that, man. Because I still have guys ask me this, like, you know, how are your daughters so close to you? Because, you know, they're all grown.
Yeah.
And I tell them, man, simply, when I was in the military, when I was home, I was home.
Yeah.
You know, like literally, when I was home with my girls, I was home with my girls.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, I was thinking about the Army and I had issues. I mean, hell, you know, as a senior leader, I get calls at 2:00 in the morning, dudes getting DUIs, all that stuff. But I didn't show that part to my girls. You know, like if I got home at 20:00 at night and Chelsea, my oldest, if she wanted to watch Peter Pan, guess what? I was laying on the couch watching Peter Pan with her.
Uh-huh.
You know, because I felt that was so important. And truthfully, that's who I really am inside. You know, I'm that guy that I want to be around, you know, the people I love, and I want to, and I'll tell you, I went through a phase, you know, like I said, for years where I couldn't talk about stuff, but I also got to that point to where my family didn't want to be around me.
Yeah.
And that's when you start understanding that you really need to take a look at yourself and fix something, you know?
Yeah.
And thankfully, you know, I have a family who's always supported me and loved me. And I've been fortunate enough and blessed enough to have people in my life like you that, you know, are just here as a brother, man. Like I don't know, man. It's a crazy world out there. And for any of y'all listening to this, man, like we both talked a lot, Tim and I talked about, none of that shit before matters, man. I mean, it matters, but it doesn't define who you are.
Right. Yes, that's
you
important.
Know, you know, and that's it. And you can make friends, you can be brothers. It doesn't matter that, all right, I was a spec ops freaking direct action guy and you were a freaking pack clerk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guess what? Okay, we did that in the military, but now we're both metalheads, or we're both this, or we're both that. We can still be buddies, man.
Yeah.
Our war story is going to be different. You know, one might be a paper cut and the other one might be, you know, you getting but my point is, man, is we're all, you know, I kind of said it like, I tell guys like this, we're all in the same gang, man. We just have different roles.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true.
But yeah, man, I mean, I know we've been on here for a while. I just want to, because, you know, man, I could talk to you for hours. I mean, doing the other podcasts, I mean, we did it in between, you know, everything. And, but I wanted you to hit, you know, Heart Support and the partnership, man. And then, and, you know, like I said, I'll be there in Pennsylvania with you. I'm excited about that. That's going to be freaking awesome.
Yeah. It's going to be great, man. So, Heart Support is a faith-based mental health service that was founded by Jake Lures, who's the lead singer of a band called August Burns Red. And for all of you metalheads out there, I'm sure you know who August Burns Red is. Yep. Great band. Absolutely. In fact, my president, who's going to be with me, Blake, who's a nasty civilian, as I call him. I love to tease him. He's my brother, best friend. He's done so much for this work. Just an incredible person. If I'm not getting a gift from an organization, it's usually him getting the gift from the organization because of how much he's done. And I love that for Blake. Any reward that man gets, he deserves. But he will be with us. That's his favorite band. So he's going to be geeking out because he's always loved August Burns Red. Just so happens that about a year and a half ago, we got reached out to by a guy named Ben Sledge, who is the head of Veteran Affairs and that part of what Heart Support does. So they reached out to us and said, hey, we need a veterans access point. We don't know what we're doing in this space, and you've been doing it for a long time. You've been meeting a lot of very cool human beings for a very long time. And I said, okay, well, what do you need? They said, well, we'll be able to provide you a platform on your website where people will be able to read your stories and then go get help according to the resources that are available and the clinicians that are available and the real mental health professionals. And Mac, I don't know about you, man, but in fact, I do know you. I'm an action guy, bro. I'm not an awareness guy. Like
Exactly.
awareness only does so much, man.
Yeah.
I know the 22 push-ups thing gets a lot of hate. I love 22 Kill and Jacob Schick and guys like that. But the push-ups is just the awareness piece to a very real measure that needs to be imparted, which is help. For the brotherhood community, we need to be brought back into community, and that's what Heart Support is looking to do, is to bring all of us back together. The coalition was the start of that. You, Kanessa Johnson, Rudy Reyes, Nate Boyer, Micah Fink from Heroes and Horses, just some incredible human beings. And Kanessa and Rudy and you and Micah possibly might be there. So all you guys, Navy SEAL, Marine Recon, Army, doing a command sergeant major at a very high level, we're all meeting in this environment to hang out, to fellowship with Jake Lors out in Pennsylvania, and to see his new Your Life gym. He built this incredible facility out in Lancaster. I'm very excited to put on the metal and get to work, because I love to work out. And you love to work out, and Jake loves to work out, so it's going to be a really cool. We all know Rudy loves to work out, so Lord knows what he's probably going to be upside down when we get there on the ceiling. Yeah. But that what we're doing in partnership is not just about awareness; it's about getting veterans the real mental health resources that they need. So Heart Support is huge to what we do, and Dave King, the executive director there, who you will meet, he's an old Army cat, served during the kind of the Vietnam era. Just an incredible professional, operated at the head of a bunch of Fortune 500 companies, and now is selflessly giving back in his career and what he does now. And he just loves this community, man. He's all about action. He's like, he tells people, I don't want the fluff, get down to business, and I want to start healing our guys and figuring out how we can do that. So this is all about action, and I love that. And it just so happens to be affiliated with Vans Warped Tour and all these really cool metal bands. And we're bringing veterans and the favorite genre of veterans together, metal. And you know how valuable metal is in your life. So it was an affiliation that made a lot of sense in bringing you on. I mean, I remember I told Ben, I was like, bro, like, I got 2 Lamb for you. I got Rudy Reyes. I got this. It's like Donald McAllister, my man, is a huge metal fan. He would be big in this. And Ben was like, bring him on, bro. I'd love, all the service that you've had. I mean, you love the metal community and you get it. So I'm sure you're excited about this event, right?
Oh, dude, I'm psyched, man. I'm like super psyched, and to be able to do the workout and, all that stuff is going to be freaking awesome, man. Because what I love about the metal community, because, since I've been retired, I've been able to meet some of my metal heroes, and to meet these guys, and they're so humble, and they're dudes like us, most of them grew up like we did and had, upbringings like us. And they turned their aggressions and their, if they were adrenaline junkies, whatever, they turned it into the metal, man. Like, dudes like us, like me, I guess you could say when I was younger, I was an adrenaline junkie and all this shit, but I did it in the military, but I didn't have the skills that, guys have for making heavy metal music and all. Yeah. But to me, what I love about the metal community and all those guys is, like, even with Jake from August Burns Red, like, he's a big time Christian. They're a Christian band, but it's not, their message is positive and everything. But but it's aggressive. The music still speaks to you, and that's right. And they knew that they had those aggressions and they had that talent, and they knew that they could reach people that way. And that's what's important, man. And totally. And for you to bring me on and then get to meet, Ben, I've met him virtually a couple times and met him, just great people, good stuff. And I tell everybody out there, I support the stuff that's really getting things done.
Yeah.
And I've said it before, man, just like you did, we're all aware of the problem, but what are we doing to fix it?
Yeah. What are we
And
doing?
yeah,
That for me is the huge piece of what we're doing, and meeting guys like him. And now I've become good friends with Matty Mullins, who's the lead singer for Memphis Mayfire, and that guy is as solid as they come, brother. He's out in Nashville, Tennessee,
yeah,
and he has a heart of gold, bro. Hey, he's been married to his wife since they were like 17 years old, and now he's like 33. I mean, he's like as solid a dude as they come. Again, a Christian, really strong Christian. But when we were talking, like in his office space, and over the podcast, I don't know if you listened to his podcast, but one of my favorite things that he said in his podcast was, "Man, are you kidding me, Tim? You guys give me the right to stand up there and sing my songs and to be and to be able to worship my God the way that I want to worship my God. Are you kidding me?" He's
yeah,
like, "You guys are worthy of everything you get." And those are people who you don't, if you read the book on the outside of the cover, you're going, "Oh, that dude doesn't care about me. He doesn't care about veteran things. I don't know what he
yeah,
likes." And then you meet these people and they care about our community so deeply and they have so many experiences with our community.
yeah,
Uh, and more some than I do. I mean, to the point of being in Germany and meeting, guys who are stationed in Germany and that making them feel like they're at home because they're both Americans, and them inviting them onto the tour bus and being like, "Hey, come hang out
yeah,
with us." Like that is huge, man. And not just saying you're about it, right? When a guy like Maddie says, "I want veterans to knock on my bus door,"
yeah.
he means that he wants veterans to knock on his bus door. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's
That's
like
huge.
well, it's like my brothers Ryan and Adrian from the rock band Otherwise, right?
Mhm.
I met those guys because of Jose Mangan from Liquid Metal, Affliction Clothing. I met Jose through Carla Harvey from the Butcher Babies, who her and I had talked. And then when I was doing stuff with the Independence Fund, she volunteered to help because she had a grief counseling service and all this stuff. And I met Jose Mangan, and next thing I'm on the radio talking about veterans and talking to this guy that I've been listening to on the radio for, at that time, probably 10 years. And I'm sitting
Mhm.
on there talking to him. And then I'm having these people like, "Hey dude, what can I do to help these guys, man? Like, I love you guys. I don't know how to reach the community, and then to have like Jose call me a month later and say, "Hey, I want to do something here at the Affliction headquarters. I have the rock band Otherwise, the hard rock band, are going to do their album release party here. I want to do like a silent auction to help some veterans. Can you get some dudes out here?" Hell yeah,
Mhm.
and it wasn't for all the glory and fame, and it was small event, private invitees, private invitation, everybody hanging out, and it was for the veterans, man. And I got to meet those guys, and then I meet them, and then we become friends, man. Like, we talk all the time, just like you and your friends, and it's like they're dudes who truly, truly appreciate the sacrifices that we've made.
Yep.
And like I tell them, they don't owe me a damn thing, but in their minds, they owe us everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for example, like you said, man, like, there's such good people. Like, I was at Ozfest in 2017. Jose Mangan's hosting. This lady, Alini Reese, I'm gonna have her on my podcast. I never in a million years would thought I'd be friends with somebody like this, right?
Yeah.
I have a free booth set up for a nonprofit at the biggest metal show in the country, and just meeting me, and I had Sagan and Nick from the band Hell Sagan with me, who are great people. Next thing you know, the second night of the concert, well, it was during the day, Eleni and Jose hit me up and they're like, "What are you doing tonight?" I was like, "Well, when I close the booth down, I'm gonna go watch the show." And they were like, "Well, take your wife and your friends and meet me up here at the front gate." So went and met them. What I didn't know was they brought me backstage, and I got to meet one of my music truly idols that I've always loved. This guy ever since they started,
Mhm.
Corey Taylor.
Mhm.
And Corey Taylor was so down to earth and so cool. And he's like, dude, I love you guys, man. He's like, are you kidding? I grew up in a trailer park, you know, like,
Mm-hmm.
and for Eleni to take a dude like me and then my buddy Jared, you know, the one that lost his arm, take us backstage and then take me out on stage in front of 40,000 people. And I didn't know any of this was going to happen. And then for Jose Mangan to say, this guy did this, and this, because he remembered. And for all these people to be cheering and to see that, you know, like, okay, people do appreciate what we did, you know, like, but that community is so, it's weird, man, because like, even if you go to a metal show, the people are like us, everybody's cool. You would think everybody's there to beat their heads in and all that stuff. But that's not the case. It's just it's a great community, man. And that's why, you know, the heart support thing. And then now I'm so excited to be able to meet Jake and all those guys, man. It like, for me as a little fanboy, and I always, even with Corey Taylor, I was like, don't fanboy out, don't fanboy out, don't fanboy out.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to be that guy, but to meet some of your heroes and the people you look up to, and then you either become friends with them or they tell you they look up to you, man, that means so much. And that's why, you know, me and Ryan from the band otherwise have talked about trying to figure out and set up a way to start a program to where we just, when shows kick back off again, whatever town a band's in, say, hey, dude, give us 6 veterans. We'll give them the full VIP treatment. You know, they can hang out backstage with us, you know, stuff like that. Because like I told them, for like dudes like me and you are big music fans, just hanging out, man, is like, they don't realize how good that is for the soul, because
it's huge, bro.
Yeah, you know, so yeah, man. I mean, it's so awesome what you're doing with Heart Support, and it's so awesome that they're partnering with you, and you didn't even have to tell me about them. When you asked me, that's all I had to say. You know, I'm a part of it. But
I love that, bro.
Yeah, but you know, man, and I mean, like, truly, you are my brother, and fortunately, you know, I got to make some really, really, really good. I ain't even call them friends, brothers, man. Us living in that house, it seemed like it's so weird in the veteran community, because like, even you and I never met before from Adam, but once we start talking, we feel like we've known each other forever.
Oh yeah,
and that's what's great about our community, man. And so for any of you out there, anytime you can get together with dudes like us or gals like us, do it.
Yeah,
because you
community.
You never know. Yeah,
community is huge, bro. That people ask me all the time about how I ask the questions I ask and how do I get into the subjects I get into, and I say, well, it wouldn't be possible if I hadn't gone overseas, to tell you the truth. It wouldn't be possible if I hadn't served in the military, because now when I come into the space, it doesn't matter if it's, you know, you or Nate Boyer or Tim Kennedy or whoever. When I come into that space, I know that guy because I served. I don't treat them any different because they're a brother to me. They might, you know, look a little sexier or run a little faster, but you know, the beauty of that community is that, to me, nobody is a celebrity and everybody is a celebrity at the same time, because I believe that these men and women have earned the respect. I'm going to show them that respect, but I'm a part of that same community. They're in the brotherhood with me. So when I step into a room with them, I do know them.
Yeah.
And if they treat me any other way, I don't want to be a part of that anyways.
No, because they're not brothers.
Yeah, they're not brothers. Like, if we both served, if we both signed our name on that dotted line, and we come into that same space, there should be a meeting of the minds there, even if we didn't particularly get along in the military. We can have that meeting of the minds. We were brothers. We were willing to stand up and to take a bullet for that other guy, and we know that. And there's a real beauty in that, and coming into that community. Man, there's no stronger bond, bro. There's no. I played college baseball. I was a captain on a college baseball team when I got back from Iraq, and I could tell you that that's a very strong bond. You know, you're always on the road with each other. You're always hanging out in the same space. You're spending 5-6 hours a day together all the time. But there is no bond like the community, like the fraternal community of the military, and especially being in an infantry company, man, there's nothing like it.
Well, and it's such a small community, man, when you think about it, you know, and it doesn't matter. Like I said, man, it just, like you said, it doesn't matter where you were at, what branch you were in, where you served, you have something in common.
Yep.
You know, and that's what's awesome about the brotherhood, and I say sisterhood now because I have really good friends that are females in the military.
Yep.
You know, I mean, like, it's awesome, man. And then, you know, for me at least, to be able to retire and then start working with nonprofits and then do these different events and then meet guys like Steven. You know, I met Steven and then we hit it off, and then the next thing you know, I'm in a movie.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm meeting you, and I already met Rudy once, but we never really got to hang out. And the next thing you know, me and Rudy are like, yeah, you know, Nate, like, you know, I knew who the guy was, but I didn't know him, you know?
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like, oh shit, he's another one of those little insta famous veterans, you know?
Yeah.
And he wasn't, man.
Yeah.
Just like Canessa, man. Canessa, she's what you see is what you get. You know?
Yeah. I can't wait for my President Blake to meet her, because I told her what a stand-up individual she is. She's just she's a dream to be around. She really is.
Well, you know, what's awesome about our community, man, is when we get together, no matter what our backgrounds were, we get together, you know, when you're in the right place, when you all start giving each other shit. You know, the good shit though. Joking with each other, messing with each other, the Marines against Army and all that stuff, because that's the brotherhood, that's the sisterhood, that's what it's about. And you know, and I've already talked about it on here, but you know, Tim was the behind the scenes photographer on Cincinnati, and I was lucky enough to get a part in there. I don't really talk too much, but I do look pretty ominous. I don't know if you watched the movie yet.
I have not. No, I have not. I've been offered to. I've just been on the road so much that I haven't been able to.
Well, I got to see it, man, and yeah,
pretty cool.
I would scare me. I can put it that way.
That's good.
But yeah, man,
that's huge. You know, you made a point a second ago that I wanted to hit off of on Steven, because we need to be very careful about this when we get back. We need civilians. We are 2%. We need that 98% when we get back. So it's up to us to make.
Can you say that again, man? I'm sorry, you just froze real quick.
No, yeah, I'm good. I said we need civilians. We are that 2%. We need the 98%. You can get back. Don't be a jerk off when you get back. Show love to your community. Show them respect, because you still have to earn your respect in their eyes. It's your respect is not garnered from your time in combat. You still have to be a good human being. So when Blake first came on to the Veterans Project, he's the president of the Veterans Project now. But at first he was just logo design and the website and all that. He was the friend of my college friend of mine, Kate, who played volleyball at my school. I played baseball. We were really good friends. I met her husband. I kind of started photography, and he'd already been a photographer for like 15 years. So he started teaching me a lot of tricks and tips and all that. I ended up photographing his wedding, and we became very fast friends. His dad was in the Air Force and worked at Lockheed Martin. And so he just respected the hell out of the military, even though he never served. Now, Blake, I would fight that guy above, like, I would take that guy and defend that guy above almost anyone else on the planet. And he's a civilian. He does his work, and his logo work is getting tatted onto special operations and grunts going overseas. He's a bad dude who loves this community so much. So I want to stress to those of you out there who are veterans, don't see civilians as different. See them as patriots in a different way. As my friend Clint Bruce said, who played football with the Baltimore Ravens and then went on to be a Navy SEAL officer. We'll forgive him for the officer part. He was an incredible man, and he says, you're either a civilian or a citizen to me. If I say civilian, it's probably not good. But if you're a citizen, you're working towards the purpose and the betterment of this nation. Man, I see citizens doing more for this country now than some veterans that get back and just sit back on their couch and are content to do what they want to, man. Blake has done more for this community than most people will even realize. and being behind the scenes to my work and the business side of what I do. So I will tell you, my best friend is a civilian. He's my brother, and this guy would have my back in a gunfight, and I would have his back in a
Yeah.
gunfight. And that's important to distinguish, because guys like Steven are going to give you those opportunities. Blake's given me opportunities that put me where I'm at.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for him.
Well, it's the same, with me and Steven. When I met him, man, I just knew he was a real dude. Like, what you see is what you get, like, and like I told him before, man, I've talked to Steven about stuff that I haven't even talked to my Army buddies about,
Yeah.
because I truly trust them.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, integrity of being who you are is very important. And that's why, like you said, being a citizen or a civilian, man, like, if you're a good human being and you're true to yourself, I'm going to see it, because I can see through the bullshit just like you can. And just like I have another really good friend, he's a civilian, Grady Davis. He started an organization called Weekends with Warriors. They don't make a lot of money, but he just gets people to volunteer boats and all and stuff to take them fishing. But to him, like, he's like, I didn't have the balls to do what you guys did, but at least I can do something. And but in his mind, like, what he told me was meeting veterans and being around them, especially, and he's really good tied in with the special operations community here. Like he said, I never would have been around people like that. And you think those dudes are going to be the biggest assholes. And like he said, they're some of the greatest human beings on earth.
Yep.
And it's because when you get to that point in your life, man, like, and that's what we talked about earlier, is who cares that I was a sergeant major, or that I did this or I did that, because at the end of the day, okay, you didn't do it, but I don't care. I did it for me. I didn't do it for you.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. What matters is, hey, are you the dude I'm talking to, or are you just some dude putting on a facade?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And if you are, I'm going to see through it, and I'm going to be like, yeah, you're a chooch bag. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
And I've met quite a few of those in the nonprofit world that are civilians and all, that truly.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. They say, but they don't.
There's bad people in every circle.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah. It's respect. The amount of infighting that I saw from veterans when I first got into the community absolutely shocked me. It blew me back in a way where I thought, guys, when we signed up to be the opposite of this.
Yeah, but it's like we said before, man. A lot of those guys came back as that generation that was owed something in their mind.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
Because everybody was throwing shit at them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the greatest system of welfare, right? Here you go. And then you wonder, when you're so used to being handled that stuff, why a guy doesn't want his own initiative or start his own thing. Hey, if I have it handed to me, I'm getting my $4,000 or $3,000 in disability, and then I've got nonprofits sending me off on every trip that I could possibly go on. Man, it's gonna be hard for me to find a reason to work. When I had this veterans project, man, I had nothing else, bro. I had my master's degree, and my parents were like, "What the hell are you doing? Why are you starting a photography? You just got your master's." And I'm being like, "Hey, I don't have any money, but I'm gonna figure this thing out." I had nothing. I was backed into a corner, man. Yeah. And it was one of the best things on the planet for me, is I had nobody to help me out. The saying, nobody's coming to save you. I was in that corner right there where I had to figure out and realize a whole system of financing the Veterans Project from a perspective that I had never had before. There was no financial model for making something like this work. So being backed into that corner was one of the best things for me, because I'm a fighting, hardworking dude, and I'm going to figure it out because I'm going to take initiative. And that's what my parents bore into me. But man, when I was backed into the corner, was it scary? Hell yeah, it was scary, bro. It was the scariest place I've ever been in my life. Scarier than some places in Iraq, where I'm in that corner and I go, I don't know what to do. I have no clue, but I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to move on, and we're going to see what tomorrow brings. But I don't want to paint a picture of this being this glorious wonderful undertaking where I'm being flown to every site. I
No.
drive everywhere.
Yep.
I've lived off of pennies. I've lived off of ramen, and we're in a good place now, man. But 6 months ago, it was every month. I don't really know how the bills are going to get paid, but I'm going to keep doing this because it's what I love and it's what I know, and I believe it's what God wants me to do. So it's going to happen, and I don't know how, but it's going to happen. And that's been 6 years of my life, man. And it's always scary.
Yeah.
But I love it, so it's what I pursue.
And it's your purpose, man.
Yeah.
It's your sense of purpose. And, like, I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up, but I know, but
You'll figure it out.
but what I have learned, man, is what I do know is that, with this and, being around guys like you and all the other people I've been around is like you said, man, I can still be the example by just being myself and talking to guys. And for everybody out there, man, I just challenge you to just wake up, look at yourself and say, am I doing today because I truly want to do it for me, or am I just doing today because I have to? Because you do the Veterans Project, like you do it for the veterans, but ultimately it's for you because it's your passion, it's your love, and because you love it and because you put so much into it, it's such a great thing, and it's such great art, and it has meaning.
Yeah.
And I know, dudes, like, people have to have a job, you got to make a living and all that stuff. Like I always tell guys too, in today's day and age, if you're doing something that you can't stand or just makes you miserable, do it until you don't have to anymore.
Yeah.
And do what makes you happy.
Our dads and our granddads didn't have that opportunity, man. In this digital age, you truly have an opportunity, not to turn into Gary V here, but you truly have an opportunity to grow on the side what you want to do while you're working that mission that you don't necessarily love and like. Realize that's also building an adversity in you. That's actually a good thing. You're having to go and do something like we did in the Army. Listen, Mac, I'm not like you. I didn't love being in the Army. In fact, I hated it most days. So I'll be honest. But I realized that was my purpose time, so I did it to the best of my ability always. I saw myself as a tactical athlete, and I always performed at the highest level that I could because I knew that my mission in the moment was to be in the United States Army, and that's what I was supposed to be, and I was going to do it to the best of my ability. So my drive is a huge and massive thing in whatever you're doing out there, and I'm speaking to those who are listening, but drive, you can still work on the thing that you love while you're working in the area that you don't necessarily like, but at a certain point you're going to need to make that faith-based jump, right? And it's going to be scary. You could have $200,000 in the bank and it's still going to be scary when you jump out on that ledge, man. It will be.
And I mean, take it from me, like, started my own business last year and it failed, but guess what? I learned so much from it. So if I do start another business, or if I do get into that, I have so much more knowledge up here that can help me be successful. Like I talked to, there was a guy, an old retired sergeant major. I'm not going to say his name, but he's a Medal of Honor recipient from Vietnam. So there's not too many of
that'll
those.
narrow it down.
Yeah. But he told me something, because I was about to start my own business. I did a Helicopters for Heroes hunt with him, shooting out of helicopters and all. And he's like, "Hey, man, after I retired, I lost 3 businesses. I went bankrupt 3 times until I finally got it right." So he's like, just don't quit.
Yeah.
Because he's like, you'll figure it out. Civilian world's hard, but you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And he's like, because that's what we're taught to do.
Yeah.
We make it happen. And I kind of, and that kind of helped me too with this, is like, okay, it's a setback, but that was then, this is now, and we're keeping moving forward. And that's what it's about, guys.
Yeah. Nobody's gonna realize that or know that when you're in the middle of your success and what you're doing with Max Man Cave Chats or anything like that. only you bringing it up gives guys a frame of a view or a reference point to the fact that you have failed in life. I've failed more times than I've succeeded by far.
Yeah.
Blake, my president, he owns a creative company as well. He's failed far more times. This is the second time going out into his own business. Now he's successful, but the first time out he was not. And it is a scary world to jump into, this
Yeah.
world of independence and doing something for yourself. But like you said, we have the initiative, we have the drive, we have the talent and the work ethic to get it done. And if you
Mhm.
truly believe in that and you truly believe in what you're doing and your passion and your purpose, there's nobody that's going to be able to stop you.
Yeah, it's just it's a bump in the road, man. You're going up that hill, you just got to dig in deeper.
Yep.
You got to, as the old saying, suck it up and drive on. Keep pushing.
Yep. Absolutely.
But my point to saying it is, my point with this is, like, I think we did a really good job on this one, is to be transparent, to let people know that, hey, dude, yeah, okay, on Instagram or whatever, I look like I got my shit together. I look, I got my tomahawks. I'm at the concert, but I'm still having issues just like the rest of you. And we all are, but I'm getting through it, and you guys can too. And the way we can do that is understanding that we have to do it for us. And like I said in a post I did, nobody can fix anything for me but me. But just like in the military, I need my support by fire element, and I need that assault element. So I need help. And when you need help, that's what we're here for.
Yep.
We're here to help each other through. We can't do it for you, but we can give you the tools to get through this. And that's what I love about Heart Support, is they actually have the tools.
Yes, absolutely.
Stuff for you to actually put in your kit bag,
Yeah.
And that's what it's about.
Yep. And for me, that's my community. That's having friends like you and Blake, my parents having the Lord that I call upon in prayer every single day. I can't imagine that without my relationship with God. But faith and my friends and my community all coming together in perpetuity. And then those resources being really available in there, right? And like you said, with Heart Support, a beautiful relationship that I believe we need to get that number down to 0, right? We hear the number all the time of whatever it is a day. We need to get that down to 0. And that's the goal. And even if we can't get it down to 0, we got to get it very close because our community is worthy. I don't want to see anybody killing themselves, taking their own lives.
No.
And there's too much of that. There's too much of that. And my best friend from my unit took his own life. We have, and granted, that became my drive to light Mac. That became my drive to push this project to the level that it's at. So a blessing came through a very real curse and a dark moment in my life. But I'll tell you that incredible Marine who became a soldier, he lives on in my mind and everything I do, and him saying, never stop this work, never stop this work. I remember that moment with him doing his project. He said, never stop doing this. And for me, that's something that lives on in my life daily. Just don't quit, guys. Don't quit.
No.
If today was hard, tomorrow can be better. I promise you that. But giving up is never the option.
No. And you can't give up. And you have a community like this of people who are there for you.
Yeah.
But we're all taught to not ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hell, I was guilty of that. Suck it up. Just like we were just talking about. But, you're not in the military anymore. You don't have to suck it up anymore. You got people that, can help you through. You have to do it for yourself. But like we talked about, they can give you the tools, man. They can, because I can't personally fix you. But if you talk to me, I'm sure I can point you in the right direction to talk to somebody who may be able to help you. Or just me listening, or Tim listening to you. And like Tim, for example, doing a project on a veteran, when he's talking to that veteran, when he's getting those stories and everything, that's an action item, man. That's making stuff happen.
Yeah.
It's saving lives, man, because you're getting that story out there. And a lot of those guys, the story they want heard is not so much theirs, but the buddies that they feel the guilt about, and the missions and all that stuff. And that's why we're all here for each other, man. Nobody's going to judge, you
Yep.
know, the judgment's over.
Yep.
You know, I mean, we all know the shit we've been through. No matter how squared away you are, no matter how much of a badass you are, you could be the number one guy on SEAL Team 6 out of all the Navy SEALs, and bad shit's still going to happen in combat.
Yep.
Because it's Murphy's Law. Just like I got it hanging up in my man cave. Murphy's Laws of combat. You know,
It's a great equalizer. It's a great equalizer for anybody. Yeah.
So you have to understand it, and I know, man, because I do it myself. Is we all look at it, we should have done this, we should have did that, it's my fault, or I shouldn't be here, they should, and all that stuff. And I get it, man. I get it. Yeah. Trust me, I feel that way every day. But at the end of the day, when I think about those things, I think of the fact that, at least for me anyway, if I was that guy that succumbed to that guilt and off myself, then what would the guys who are my brothers or the guys that look up to me, what would, and obviously my family, but what would the second and third order effects be? You know, like, obviously
you don't just die. You don't just die.
Yeah.
That's not all that happens. That effect always lives on. I've seen it with my best friend. His family is still suffering for his decision.
Yeah.
Still suffering. And they always will for that.
And you think about it, man, like, you know, say, for example, you're a big, huge in the veteran community and you off yourself, right? Because you felt that pain just got so bad. Then what is that kid that got out after one hard deployment and he's been dealing with demons and thinking he's fixing it all, and then he sees that?
Yeah.
How does he feel about his future?
Yeah.
You know,
he's like, holy crap, if that guy took his own life, then maybe I should. Like,
how am I going to get through this?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the other thing is you have a sense of responsibility. I mean, first to yourself, because you owe it to yourself. But secondly, you have to think about those second and third order effects. And I know, I mean, I've never tried to kill myself or anything, but I know that when people get in that moment, when they do it, it's a rash decision.
Yeah.
99% of the times, the ones who actually do it, it's not premeditated. Yeah. You know, like when you talk to families or doctors or whoever, it's like they get to that point. Like I had another buddy did it not too long ago. Nobody sees it, because the guys that are going to do it, they hide it so well. Because what does everybody say when somebody offs himself? Man, I never would have guessed.
I never saw that coming.
Yeah. Because they've tried to be strong for everybody else. But at the end of the day, man, if you don't do it for you, it's going to come back to bite you in the ass. And and I can understand the pain. And I know a lot of people have been, and I know a couple guys who tried, and luckily they lived.
Yeah.
But like they said, they were in that place to where they felt like their families and everybody would be better off without them. You know? And
that's never true.
No. And it's just like in the military, man, when you do your op order, when you do the con op, you know, concept of the operation, you also have to have contingency plans, because if something bad happens on the X, there are going to be second and third order effects from that. So what are you going to do to react to that? To go off from it? And it's the same thing if you off yourself. They're going to be second and third order effects. How are your family and friends? What are they going to have to do now? You know? One, they're going to have to deal with pain, but two, they have to bury you or cremate you. They have to deal with all these other things that at the time you're not thinking about. You're thinking about the pain, and you're thinking about, and it's rash. So if you do get to that point, if you even get to the any way, shape, or form near there, just freaking take a breath. Talk. Not, I don't, you know, like Tim said, we're all aware of it, and I can't fix you, but you know, you don't even have to tell somebody what's going on, but sometimes just hearing somebody else's voice will save your life. And I know
Yep.
that from talking to some of my buddies.
Mm-hmm.
And one in particular, it was just a freak. I called him because I wanted him to help me with the Spartan race because I had a bunch of wounded guys going through. But what I didn't know was he was right there.
Yep.
He was ready to do it. And just me reaching out, he said it was like he said it was almost like God's hand or an angel's hand reaching out and grabbing him out of the darkness, but he didn't tell me that on the phone, but like he said, just hearing my voice and saying, "Hey dude, will you come hang out with me?" made a big difference. So, and that's the other thing, man. I say, if you're doing well, then reach out to others.
Yeah.
You never know who you may affect just by saying, "Hey, what's up, dude?"
Man, that's true, dude. Yeah. I need to do a better job of that. We all could do better at that, but I tell people this all the time. There is no contingency. There is no mitigation
No.
for suicide. There is no plan outside of taking your own life that can possibly be good. And there's nothing that can come from that second or third order effect, like you said, Mac, that could be positive. Generational issues are a very real thing when it comes to taking one's own life. You see it sometimes 2 or 3 generations down the line of a grandkid having very real effects from that having taken effect. So that situation and that decision is never selfless. It's always selfish. And I get that there are problems that lead to that, but it's still a selfish decision in the fact that you're affecting a lot of people around you. And if you don't think that people care, if you were able to step outside of your own body, you would see very realistically that people do care about you. There's always somebody that cares about you. And if you don't feel like anybody cares about you, call Mac up, call me up, because I promise I do care about you. And I will tell you I love you because I do. You're a human being and you're a brother who served. And I have all the love in the world. As I started a project just wholly dedicated to this, I love this community and I want to see this community thrive.
Yeah, well, with that said, man, I mean, we've been on here for over 2 hours, but
yes,
we could talk forever, just like a thing. But
yeah,
I just want to close with telling Tim, I really can't thank you enough for doing this, brother.
yeah, man.
I'm trying to figure it out. But for me, like I said, this is therapy for me. It helps me, but to be able to just get these talks out there and show people and let hopefully other people, and I say it every time, and now I'm saying it at the end, I challenge other senior leaders like myself to take a step out of that comfort zone and be a little more open about things.
Yes, bro, 100%.
Yeah.
That comfort is huge. The reciprocation of that is massive. The ability for a man like you to come and speak out shows others that they could speak out. Like I said, in examples of World War II Medal of Honor recipients like Woody Williams. When men like that speak up, when guys like you speak up, it makes others feel a lot more secure, because it used to be this machismo thing of like, I don't want to tell my story. I don't want to show that I suffered. I don't want to show that I went through this. Listen, if Woody Williams can talk, if Rudy Reyes could talk, if Donald McAllister could talk, any one of these great men who are as every bit macho and alpha as they come, if they're able to talk about their experiences, you could talk about your experience too.
Yeah. You have to, man. And there's no judgment. And and just like you said, it's about you, it's about you, and you have to do that. But if you're one of those leaders out there, and I'll tell you, when I was in the Army, just like we talked, I was, I would have never done what I'm doing now. I don't think I would have had the courage, because it's one of the scariest things that I ever did was, one, going to see a therapist, but two, actually talking to people in the open about it. And what you have to take a step back and realize is it's not even because even people that didn't see carnage still deal with the issues from it, like I said, because they lived on that with that anxiety level so high. Now, there are plenty of us out there who have seen things that normal human beings are not supposed to see. So
Right.
guess what? We're going to be affected,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't have to define who you are, and it doesn't have to control your life. You can control it. You can face it on your terms. And from an old guy who's seen a lot, what I would tell everybody out there is you think you want to forget a lot of these things, but you don't.
Absolutely.
You just want to be able to rationalize them because you don't want to forget what happened to that guy. You don't want to forget that day, but you want to be able to rationalize why it happened or
Totally.
what happened, and that's the hard part for all of us, because our rationalization is we effed up, something went wrong, and it's my fault. But when you take a step back, peel back the onion, you always see that I'm sure there are instances where crazy shit happened, but the majority of the time, when you take a step back and you look at the whole situation, everybody did their job.
Mm-hmm.
But as we said, in combat, bad things are going to happen.
Yes.
And nobody in the military teaches any of us how to rationalize that or actually, internalize it. And then nobody teaches us when we transition out how to carry that baggage. Nobody gives us any tools on how to actually carry it. And that's why I say you can carry it and you can control it and you can own it.
Yeah.
But you have to do it for you. And with that 100%. Said, man, yeah. So, like I said, man, Tim, I'm so honored for you to be on here, brother. I can't wait to see you in February.
Yeah, man.
Before we get off of here, man, just the Veterans Project. It's just theveteransproject.com, right?
No, it's www.thevetsproject.com. Yeah. So, because the domain was like $5,000 or whatever for the Veterans Project, we just got the Vets Project, and obviously it's a little easier on people too. So, thevetsproject.com, and then the Instagram is the Veterans Project, Facebook is the Veterans Project, and then Twitter is project_veteran. We're not doing any TikToks yet. So anyways, but you can check us out at those platforms. Really, I encourage people to go to the website because it is important that people read these entire blogs. For those of you that have the, spend 30 minutes, spend an hour reading these projects, major capers. You'll never regret reading about the live men. And then the podcast, of course, is on all platforms. It's the Veterans Project podcast. And then we have the Caregiver Project, of course, which I cannot fail to mention, Mac, because it's so important, covering these Gold Star, Silver Star, White Star families. And that's the caregiverproject.com. And then we're on social media as well. So that project is just as important to me. Obviously, when I'm talking to my veteran brothers, we tend to discuss the Veterans Project more. But I spend just as much of my time thinking about the caregivers and all that they've done. So that's important.
And those caregivers are warriors, man.
Oh, yes, warriors. Absolutely, brother. You know it. Your wife being at home for so long, being a Blue Star wife, and you being gone, and a Silver Star wife when you were wounded, all the things that she had to deal with, just a warrior of a woman. And I met her and she's lovely, but I could tell she is a warrior for sure.
Yeah, she's one of the only things in this world I'm scared of.
That says a lot. A lot.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on, Mac. I really appreciate it, brother.